Welcome, welcome back, everybody, to the Fromville Hour. What is going on, everybody, on this fine Thursday evening here on the States, or whatever day it is, far and wide? I know we have some international viewers that tune in from time to time, which is so freaking awesome. So, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are, all across the globe. It is so awesome to be here. And tonight, we are going to be diving into some of the biggest mysteries, some of the bigger unsolved questions in From, and some of the things that we can hopefully look forward to getting some answers to in season 3 and beyond. Because let's face it, there are some really, really big mysteries still left unanswered on this show that I know that we are all just dying to answer. So that is what we are going to dive into tonight. And of course, I'm sure the chat will definitely guide us and tell us wherever, whatever you guys want to talk about, definitely let us know in the chat as well. We have a lot of mysteries that the show throws at us, and I am looking forward to diving into a few of them tonight. Welcome, everybody.
Thank you. It's good to be here. The nice little pause there. Yeah, man. And that's the thing about this show. There are the mysteries that are out there, and we talk about them, probably episode after episode. But there's a lot of stuff that they could answer without really affecting the trajectory of the show too, and to give us at least the illusion of progress. So, I'll take progress or I'll take the illusion of progress. But yeah, season 3 definitely needs to deliver, and we've talked about how they need to amp up or at least start providing something to us. And it'll be neat to get into these questions, and I want to hear from the chat too, man. The ones that these guys think that what would be good, what would be good for the writers to answer without really ruining what their vision for the show is. So
yeah, there's little things. I know there's a lot of questions, little things that have been nagging at people that they could answer without kind of spoiling the overall mystery of the show, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking at it. Too, we've got questions. There's big questions. There's small questions.
Yep.
There's stuff that is not related to either of the major arcs of either season, plus the overall arc that just is episodic based. That, like the classic one that we always talk about of how did Boyd get the rope? It doesn't factor in, but you're curious. And how many of those questions are actually going to factor into where we're headed with season 3 and the eventual conclusion? And how many of them are just not important at all, and it's just lost in the mist as far as what its ramifications truly are. So it's something to be it's gonna be a lot of fun going through these.
Absolutely. Because if there's one thing that this show is not short on, it is mystery, and it is unanswered questions that I know a lot of us are all dying to know. So I figured that could be really fun tonight. And of course, as Ravener said, I would love to hear from the chat as well. What are some of the biggest unanswered questions that you guys are hoping to get answered in season 3 or in later seasons? What are some of the biggest mysteries that I've just been nagging at you guys as well? Definitely let us know throughout the night as we go on. And speaking of the awesome chat, let me scroll over here and see who we got hanging out with us tonight on this fine Thursday evening. Hope everybody had a wonderful and safe holiday season. If you celebrated 4th of July, welcome, and hope you stayed safe and had a good time. Let's see who we got here.
I had to block some people on Twitter for mouthing off about 4th of July.
Oof. Yeah, dude, I don't get that. I mean, I understand it.
Yeah, it's just edgelord shit. I'm like, I ain't got time for it. It's just like, well, like the Americans when they were mouthing off about the king or whatever, the newly minted king. I was like, okay, whatever. And I can understand English people blocking Americans that did that shit, but then I had to block.
I stay away from all of that nonsense. I am looking for entertainment and escapism only when I go online. So screw all that noise. Let's see who we got in the chat here tonight. We got Carrie hanging out, sending love. Absolutely, we are sending love right back to the chat and to everybody all across the globe. You guys are so freaking awesome. We got Joshua Waterman in here as well, running the rock. Absolutely, we run the rock every week, sometimes 2-3 times a week. We run that rock. Absolutely. I got to say, that was just been a huge overall hit, that the intro that you kind of whipped together for this show, all this. So, man, just bravo for that From intro that we have to play every week. I really look forward to it. Great
yeah,
team.
Man, thanks. I'm glad everybody enjoys it. And one of the things I need to work on here now that we've got season 2 completed is a new cut for the eventual moving into fall here, we'll probably have a new intro. Probably the same tune, but some new images to go with it.
I like it. I like it. I like it. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you haven't already, made sure to join the Discord and continue the From discussions over there. Absolutely. Thank you for reminding me, Joshua. We have recently been getting quite a lot of requests to set up a From Discord area where people can go and hang out. And after I get so many requests, I always want to give the chat what they want. I am not too familiar with Discord myself. I'm still trying to familiarize myself with the platform, and I have some people that are going to help me customize the Discord a little bit more, and we're going to get into that as soon as possible. But we do have an active Discord that is up right now. It is free and open for anyone who wants to join and hop in there and talk all things From. And it's just a good way for everyone to stay in touch. I will certainly be putting all of our show links in the Discord because I know YouTube doesn't always send out notifications all the time. And whatever other shows we end up covering on the show in the channel in the future, you'll probably get a heads up in there as well. So yeah, join the Discord if you want to. The link is in the chat. And like I said, it's going to become a little bit more customized here in the future. Like I said, I'm not too familiar with Discord, but I know Aldous knows his way around that, and he's going to help me set this thing up.
Yep, just give us some time, guys. It was kind of a impromptu thing. Usually, we don't do too much around here without some planning, and this was an impromptu thing. So
yeah, I literally just whipped it up in like 2 seconds after I just like, all right, let me just whip this up real quick. I had enough people asking, and yeah, we haven't really done anything with it since.
For sure. We'll get some channels set up so that people can share images and go down rabbit holes on their theories and stuff, and then get all that broken out, and you'll have all your topics here. But just give us some time. Be patient with us. It's coming.
It's coming for sure. And of course, custom emojis. You guys know we are famous for the custom emojis over here on the channel. And if you are a member of the YouTube channel, definitely let us know if you want any other new emojis added to the emoji selection. I am always open to some new suggestions for sure. For sure. We got Scarlet Fever in the house. What is up, Scarlet Fever? It is good to see you. Hey, guys. How is everyone tonight? How is everyone indeed? It is good to see all of you. It's good to see all of you. Absolutely. We got Angela E hanging out as well. What is up, Angela E? It is awesome to see you. We got Nicole J hanging out as well. What is up, Nicole J? Anyone got some nudie pics they want to share? Oof. Not me. I am sorry. I'm going to have to pass on that one, Nicole J. I am sorry.
And that will not be allowed in the Discord. Thank you.
No, that is not allowed in the Discord. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. One of the biggest mysteries is on a show where nothing is coincidence. A lot of characters have unique names. Why would the writers have characters named Thomas and Tom? What is their connection? Good question. I didn't even really think of it too closely myself, but usually when you see shows like this, you kind of, the writers like to give characters as many different names as possible. But yeah, you got a Tom and a Thomas all in one season. I'm not sure. I'm not exactly sure. I haven't really looked into it anymore, what the names could possibly represent. But like you said, a show like this, that there really isn't a whole lot of coincidence. It seems like almost everything does mean something. Who knows? Maybe there's some method to the naming. Who knows? Could be onto something there. We got Xavier Anderson in the house. What is up, Xavier Anderson? The monsters in the tunnels power the electricity with the fear they collect from the people of Fromville. Now, there is an interesting theory that I have not heard before. And in a fandom where I feel like I have heard every single theory at least once up until this point, that is a new one that I have not heard before, Xavier. And I got to say, I like that. I do like that. We are seeing a ton of evidence that these monsters do kind of feed on fear. They clearly want their victims not just dead. They want them afraid and petrified before they die. They want to torture them.
Okay. So, and the wires do go down only a certain distance and then stop.
Yeah, the wires stop right at the tunnels. You're right. Yeah.
We briefly touched on something like that. We didn't actually make the connection, but we did talk a little bit about I think I talked a little bit about. I'm a huge fan of Twin Peaks, and in Twin Peaks,
yeah.
anytime you have an electrical disturbance or you hear a buzzing, an electrical buzzing sound, it indicates that you're entering a realm in between where the lodges exist, or where the evil exists, and then where our reality exists. And then we were talking a little bit about maybe they were kind of alluding to something like that as well. But that is fantastic. The concept of the fear powering it. That's a really that's interesting. We could probably delve into that a little bit sometime.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot, Xavier. And like I said, in a show like this where there's so many theories swirling around, where you feel like you've heard every theory up until this point. Yeah, that's a new one in terms of that connection of it. Anyway, that's a new one for me. But I like what you are cooking up there, Xavier Anderson. And yeah, like Alda said, maybe that's worth diving into a little bit more. Maybe the fear is actually powering the electricity. I like that. I like
Yeah.
that.
Because
I like the cutting
and
your jib.
that was one of the biggest questions about with the simulation theory, or that the power could come from anywhere, and it could be on. It exists because whoever is coding it, whoever is programming it, says it exists. But that's and I liken that to any other computer game you play. Like, say you're in a world that has like light switches and stuff. You press a button that says light switch, and the lights come on. The coders didn't code an entire electrical infrastructure behind the light switch that you just press, because it doesn't need to be there. So apparently the wires do need to be there then. And now that would make sense if they were actually driving electricity from the fear, or from something to do with something underground. Because if you're gonna have them, if you're gonna have electricity come from wires, or if you're going to have electricity, just have it turn on and have it be inexplicable. They don't have to have 10 feet of wire. They don't have to have it go down 10 feet. It could go down 0 feet, and it could just work without explanation if that's the way it's coded. So yeah, man, that is probably about as close as we've gotten really to a good explanation of why the wires needed to be that certain amount of distance, unless because there's no way somebody planned on well, should we like, say in a simulation, should we code these wires to go 8 feet down? No, they might dig 8 feet down. Let's make them 12 feet deep into the ground. Nobody would have thought that Tabitha was going to dig 12 feet down into the basement of her home. That wasn't even her home. I mean, till Frank's family got eaten.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely one of the bigger mysteries on the show. Where exactly is this electricity coming from? It has to be coming from somewhere, regardless of its kind of mystical nature. Jade does clearly display that whatever it's coming from, there is electricity coming out of the end of these outlets. And we saw him demonstrate that when he puts on the hair dryer to demonstrate to Jim and Tabitha in season 1. So, regardless of the mystical nature of it, there is electricity here, so it has to be coming from somewhere. So yeah, I like it. It's like I said, it's a new theory that I haven't heard before, and it's a good one. So yeah, maybe we can dive into that a little bit more. I like that. I like that a lot. We got Snuggy Jr. in the chat. Hey, everybody. Not on the panel tonight, but listening as I work at the Taco Bell elbow cough. And yes, Snuggy Jr., it is Snuggy cannot join us tonight, but I'm sure he will be back for the watch party this Saturday when we dive into episode 2 of season 1 for the season 1 rewatch. I am looking forward to that. My biggest mystery in season 1, episode 3, when they were running to Colony House, one of the monsters asked Julie if she remembered him. Who is that guy? She had legit just gotten there. Yeah, that's one of the bigger mysteries. Yeah, we see at the beginning of season 1 where, for me, I kind of thought that was maybe just the monster's way to try and tempt Julie, to try and maybe distract her a little bit. We see in the very first episode, the old lady monster kind of does something similar to Megan, where she pretends to be Megan's grandmother. I think the monsters just kind of maybe tried to use that familial bond to maybe try and lure the victims out, maybe. But who knows? Maybe there could be a little bit something more to that, because you see the look on Julie's face. She's looking at this kid almost like she recognized him for a second there.
Yeah, like a gentle hypnosis, kind of like mesmerized, just like Megan was with the grandma. Even though she knew, you're not my grandma, she was still the grandma changed tax without a without a hitch too. She was like, she's like, "You're not my grandma," and she's like, "I'm so
I'm
lonely," or whatever.
so cold.
Yeah,
Maybe I could come on
yeah.
inside. Yeah.
And she just went
Um,
right on over and opened it up. And the same thing happened with Julie. She was like taking that step towards the dude right before Kenny popped a round into his shoulder, and that
yep.
really broke the spell.
Yeah, it's
Even though
almost
it didn't
like,
do anything.
yeah, it is almost like they have some sort of kind of low level glamour, like some low level hypnosis that they can maybe kind of draw people in. We hear, I believe we hear at some point in season one that children are a little bit more susceptible to falling prey to these monsters in their human form, and we clearly saw that in Megan. She kind of fell right for it. And Julie being at, obviously not as young as Megan, but Julie being at a younger age, just a teenager at the time. Yeah, maybe it's a little easier for the monsters to kind of influence, younger people, because yeah, Julie did have that kind of weird look on her face, almost like she kind of recognized the dude and was kind of just like stuck staring at him there for a minute. So yeah, who knows? Maybe you could be onto something there, Alex Hill. That could be something there indeed. I like that. I like that indeed. We got Tim R in the chat as well. What is up, Tim R? It is good to see you. Let me scroll down a little bit, see if I missed anybody. If I do miss anybody, I am terribly sorry, but there are so many of you usually hanging out, and it's hard to get to everyone, especially with this StreamYard thing jumping on me. But I do see B. Morgan. What is up, B. Morgan? It is good to see you. I see Cecil in the house. What is up, Cecil? It is good to see you as well. I see C is in the house as well. What is going on? I see Landa Thompson. What is up, Landa? Good evening to you as well. Awesome to see everybody here hanging out tonight. Really looking forward to diving into some of the biggest mysteries that this show still has to offer. And of course, as we are going throughout the night, definitely let us know what some of your biggest mysteries are on the show, some of the biggest questions that you are hoping to get answered. And as we go, and we will dive into those as well. I believe Colony House.
Oh yeah, I was going to jump in. I was going to jump in. Just I was going to put this in the chat actually, but I figure I may as well just say it since, hey, guess what? I'm on the panel. That these Saturday shows, I mean, we've already had the Saturday season 1 rewatches, but these shows are going to be so fire because a lot of these questions that I have, that the panel has, that you guys in the chat have. We're going to be able to go over these with like an ultra fine tooth comb again as we rewatch these episodes, and we're going to see stuff like like Julie, like that exact interaction with the kid on the porch of Colony House. With the monster and all that stuff, and being able to go over the first season, which I'm not even gonna use kid gloves on it. The first season was far superior to the second season.
I liked season 1 a little bit better than season 2 myself as well. Yeah, I like season 2, but season 1 was it was almost perfect TV for a first outing.
Absolutely.
Well, it's because you didn't know anything. You didn't have any questions. There was no preconceptions. It was just it was something that was brand new. Going into season 2, you had those preconceptions, and it's that same reason why a sequel is usually not nearly as good as the original, because it's not quite as fresh, and it really takes a lot to do something where the season 2 or episode 2 is always going to be superior to episode 1. That's where I think the strength of season 3 goes. If they take their time and do it correctly and they've had a plan, season 3 should really be epic because they've had that time to pace everything out. They've done their exposition. Now it's time to get into the meat.
Exactly. And that's usually the kind of a similar path that these kind of mystery box style of storytelling shows usually go. Like I know I say it all the time, but even thinking back to Lost, you don't really get any big definitive answers on Lost until you get to seasons 3 and even 4. So yeah, this third season coming up, these first 2 seasons were heavy on mystery. I was expecting a little bit of that, definitely. But yeah, when season 3 comes around, you hope that they start to dive into a little bit more of the explanation side, and they're not so heavy with just the mystery, because there is already more than enough mystery. They have set up so much stuff that they are probably going to need a few seasons to pay off anyway. So yeah, I would love to see season 3 kick off and we start to get not all the answers, of course. I definitely want the show to have that aspect of mystery. Once the show answers everything, it kind of loses its magic and the mystery is gone. And I definitely don't want that to happen here. You want them to hold back some big cards until the final season, of course. But some little stuff that these little questions that a lot of the chat and a lot of the fandom has been asking for 2 seasons now. Some of the little stuff, yeah, hopefully they do get around to start to answering some of it, and I think they will. I think season 3 will provide at least more answers than season 2 did at the very least. I mean, it has to at this rate. It has to at this rate. But we got, let's see, yeah, they need like little stuff like this that they could answer, and it wouldn't really impact the overall plot of the story. If they were to answer how exactly Martin threw that rope down to Boyd, it's like I said, it's a question that everybody has been asking. Everybody is still asking this question, still to this day. How exactly did Martin throw that rope down? And this is the perfect example of something small that they could answer, that it gives the audience that satisfaction of the answer that they were craving, but at the same time it doesn't kind of ruin the overall mystery of the show that they're still trying to work out. And I think another one that comes to mind, at least for me, was in season 1. I mean, one of the biggest mysteries that I am still wondering, what exactly was it that was dragging the tent? What exactly dragged Boyd and Sarah's tent in season 1? It's little questions like this that they could answer that, like I said, it'll give the audience that kind of satisfying feeling of getting the answer that they wanted, but it's not going to spoil anything too big plot-wise overall. So little stuff like that, hopefully we do start to see them answer in season 3.
Yeah, and that's the one that comes back so many times. I mean, it comes back literally every time we have an unanswered question. Unanswered questions become the topic. That rope, that goddamn rope, man. We got to know.
Yeah,
and I still think they may not ever answer it, just out of spite.
They might not. Yeah, they might not. I think at least at this point, I wouldn't be too surprised if we never found out who throws that rope down. I wouldn't be too surprised if they don't answer it. I wouldn't be surprised if they do, but if we don't get an answer, I wouldn't be too shocked. But whatever was dragging the tent.
Yeah, that'll be season 5, episode 10. Like the very final frame reveal, and it'll be like the janitor's getting ready to mop the dungeon, and he just throws his rope down casually.
Yeah, it's stuff like that hopefully they are going to start to answer. But like you said, maybe they won't. But something like this where whatever was dragging the tent at the end of season 1, this is, at least just me personally, this is something that it's been nagging at me ever since I first saw it. I really hope they do eventually answer what was dragging this tent at the end of season 1. I feel like that was one of the bigger mysteries coming out of season 1. When season 1 ended, one of the biggest questions on everyone's mind, of course, was what exactly was dragging that tent. Everybody was asking that question at the end of season 1. And, going into season 2, I'm hoping that they are going to touch on this at some point. Maybe we get a flashback scene of the boy in white's POV or something. Maybe he watched what happened or something along those lines. But yeah, then season 2 comes around, and they don't really touch on any of these mysteries that they set up in season 1. So yeah, hopefully season 3 is, like I said, I definitely think season 3 will give us a little bit more answers than season 1 did.
And when we get to this scene with Boyd and Sarah, that's going to be one of the dialogues that we really go over with a fine tooth comb. So because there's so much stuff in there that at the time you just kind of like, okay, whatever. That whole thing about worms, and when you cut them in half, they become grow another worm or whatever. And Boyd's like, man, worms are creepy. And then just a hot second later, like a hot second later, then here comes a ballerina with earthworms sticking out of her mouth, and it's like, oh man, come on. And then also this is a point somebody had made in a previous episode. We saw them get dragged, and when they finished getting dragged, they were in the place where all the spider webs were. So we just automatically assumed that it was a giant spider pulling it, but there's nothing to indicate that there even is a giant spider. It could be a bunch of little spiders for that part. I mean, other than the fact that Abby was encased in a cocoon. But the thing is, I mean, where do we get that notion from? Well, every other instance when we see a human cocooned, just like in Lord of the Rings, just like in anywhere else, it's always a giant spider doing the cocooning. There's nothing to say that it wasn't just a bunch of little spiders working together to cocoon a human. We're just making a lot of leaps.
This still was actually going around a lot at the end of season 1. I don't know who took the actual screenshot, but after season 1 ended, this still was all over the internet, and people were pointing to this being evidence of a giant spider leg. leg right here, this kind of shadow outside of the tent.
Ooh.
And I mean, who knows? I mean, it could be a tree branch, it could be a spider leg, it could be a giant spider leg. Who knows? But I remember seeing this still just going all over the place online, and that's what a lot of people were saying about it. Oh, like this is the proof of the giant spider, and it could be. Who knows? It very well could be, or maybe it's just a tree branch. Who knows? But yeah, I do hope they answer at one point who exactly or what exactly was dragging the tent and why. Because at first, when you first see that scene, you're kind of led to believe that was whatever was dragging the tent was trying to maybe throw them off course or something like that. But then when you stop and realize where they ended up after the tent got done dragging, they ended up incredibly close to the lighthouse, almost like whatever was dragging their tent was trying to get them closer to the lighthouse. Maybe it was trying to help in the long run. But that's something I do hope they kind of circle back to at some point. But
And
I
like
guess we'll wait and see.
he says it's a tree root, the moving tree dragged them, and
Ooh,
I ain't gonna say anything.
A lot of people think there are giant moving trees, kind of like Lord of the Rings style giant moving trees as well. I mean,
they were
anything's
moving
possible,
fast,
I guess.
They were moving fast, but the thing is to be fair, that looks like it looks more like a tree root than it does like an articulated spider leg, I would say. But
it's a stretch to be a spider leg for sure. It definitely seems like it's probably just like a random branch as they're whipping by. But who knows? Like I said, when we get to this episode on the season 1 rewatch, it'll be fun if we can. When we get to this episode, I believe this is episode 9. We can kind of, when we get to this scene, maybe we can slow it down and see if we can find the exact freeze frame that matches this, and see if we can match anything else to it. We'll see what else we can see when we get to this episode for sure. Do you guys think Sarah has the worms? I don't personally. And now that wasn't something that was another big mystery that was kind of going along for a while. And I get it in the comment section every once in a while too, that, how come nobody's talking about Sarah having the worms as well? I don't talk about it personally. Well, I mean, we've talked about it a few times on a few different streams. I don't really put it in any of my recorded videos because I don't think they are worms personally, just me personally. I look at the worms, the way that they were moving in Boyd's arm, the way that they acted, and not only the way they acted, but how they affected Boyd as well. Boyd had some very adverse reactions to having these worms, and he only had them for a very, very short amount of time, a few days, and they were making him weak. They were impairing his vision. We haven't seen Sarah display any symptoms that kind of match what comes with having the worms. And if Sarah does have worms, she would definitely have had them a lot longer than Boyd did. So you would think there would be a little bit more of an effect there. And then when you look at the actual message that manifested on Sarah's arm, it looks a lot more like cuts, almost like a stigmata cut a little bit more than the actual worms. The way that the worms move under Boyd's arm, it just didn't really look the same as to the message that popped up on Sarah's arm. I just think that whatever happened on Sarah's arm, it was just the voices were trying to kind of give her a message to kill the boy. I don't think she actually has worms, though. I could be wrong, though. Who knows? What do you guys think? Do you think Sarah has worms, or do you think that was just the things trying to give her a message?
Like one big tapeworm, or like the magical worms? Because she's thin. So,
and we talked about them looking like like the scratches on The Exorcist or whatever, how they were like stigmata, raised and that kind of stuff. I mean, if there isn't like an ongoing effect of them, and that'll be another thing that I key in when we're doing the season 1 rewatch. And oddly enough, because I know there's so much good info in the season 1 rewatch, I haven't been watching it just to answer this question just for myself. But maybe they're not. We don't even have any real guarantee that she's actually seeing them or that they're actually real. She's seeing them. But she could be the only one seeing them.
Yeah,
there's a few instances.
Says it could be like a vision thing, similar to how like Boyd was seeing the ballerina. Maybe Sarah was the only one who saw that, because when we see Sarah in later scenes, it doesn't look like she has a big old scar on her arm saying "kill the boy." Maybe it was just their way of kind of communicating a message to her, but she was the only one that could see it. I'm starting to think that was probably the most likely answer.
And just when she had been like essentially possessed to do the drawing, to prove that she isn't just completely imagined. The drawing was the one instance that anchors it into the real world, where we know that it isn't all just in her head, because at that point, I mean, and I think even all the way through, we don't really get a whole lot that links what she's experiencing in her mind to the real world, other than a few instances where, for example, like she envisions, or her mind tells her that Abby said the fish and low stuff. That anchors it with Boyd that it's real, because that was info that she could not have had access to.
She couldn't have gotten any other way. Yeah.
And the drawing, exactly the same thing with Father Khatri. That anchors it, that she had.
It makes you think it's real, not just in her head. Certain things that she just couldn't know.
And it's not just it's not just like fortune teller, intuitive guessing and stuff. This is like literal physical stuff that she could not have actually had
intel
known.
She's receiving. Yeah.
Not basement of the Alamo shit.
And maybe that's a good way to kind of distinguish what is actually real information and what is kind of visions, because we know that this show throws a ton of weird kind of vision stuff at you, so it's kind of hard to tell what is real, what is not at times. But yeah, like you said, that's a really good way of pointing out this is information that she just couldn't have received any other way, so there had to be something communicating with her. It couldn't just all be in her head. So yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Let's see what else we got here in the chat. Let's see here. How long and how did Victor survive? Victor said he moved the cars. How? Who taught him to drive? Good question. Good question indeed. Now, we know that Victor, of course, was the lone survivor of the massacre that happened way back in the day, close to 40 years or so around the current events of the show. In terms of how Victor survived, he does touch on that a little bit in season 2, and either at the end of season 1 or season 2, he touches on it a little bit, where he credits the little boy in white. The boy in white kind of appeared to Victor the very next morning, as we see here. This, for all intents and purposes, this seems to be the first time that the boy in white appeared to Victor, right after this big massacre happened. And Victor credits the boy in white with being the reason that he survived on his own for so long. The boy in white clearly helped him in a lot of different ways. So that's the reason why I think he survived for so long. But in terms of the cars, who taught him to drive? No clue. I mean, maybe he ended up just teaching himself. I mean, he did arrive in Fromville with his mother, at least with his mother in their station wagon that they arrived in. Maybe he kind of just watched how his mother drove and kind of just figured it out for himself, maybe. Not sure. But yeah, it definitely seems like the boy in white, at the very least, is a big reason why Victor survived for so long on his own.
Well, and realistically, if it's not a manual and you don't have to function with a clutch, it's not hard.
It's probably straightforward, for a kid even.
I mean, you're going to see your mom or dad get in the car and turn the key, and then, once you get it running, you can figure out how to shift, and then, okay, it's not pretty fast to figure out R is reverse and drive is forward, so...
Like you said, it's unless it's a stick shift, I imagine it's probably, he probably would have been able to figure it out after a little while. But great question as well. I love diving into some of these earlier stuff that we haven't touched on since season 1. That's why I'm really, really enjoying the season 1 rewatch party. And anyone who has not heard about the season 1 rewatch party that we are doing, every Saturday night at 10 p.m. Eastern, we are doing a season 1 complete rewatch. We started last week with episode 1, season 1. This Saturday, we are doing episode 2. So we'd love to see you guys come and join us for the season 1 rewatch. See if we can pick up on some stuff that we might have missed now that we have a little bit more context now that season 2 is done. So I'm looking forward to seeing what we can potentially pick up. But yeah, every Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern, we are going to dive into season 1. Do you think the roots/symbols relates to the title of the show, like the roots are where you're from? Interesting indeed. I'm not quite sure. This actually came up just the other night, where someone was wondering what the title of the show means. Is it going to have some kind of significant meaning within the show? From? And it very well could at this point. Nothing really comes to mind for me off the top of my head. But I'm not too sure. I don't know if it's going to have a connection to the symbol or what's going to be going on there. The symbol definitely seems very important at the very least. We learned at the end of season 2 that the Ankui children that Tabitha was seeing have some sort of connection to this symbol now. So it definitely seems like this symbol is going to be very important when we find out what it really means. But I'm still not 100% sure what it means. That was another question that I was going to bring up tonight. What exactly does this symbol really represent? But I don't know. What about you guys? Does anything come to mind when you think about the show title From? Do you think there's a smaller hint there, maybe?
You want to go first, Ravener?
I could, but I have absolutely nothing. I really haven't
I have
given it.
nothing either.
I haven't
Yeah, that's
really
why.
given it. I didn't really give it any thought or place any significance in it, because that one. I mean, there's questions that I'll like really drill down into, and they might be like minutia and stuff that ultimately you don't know. But I have a feeling that this one, I mean, I could spin my wheels for weeks and still come up with nothing. So I don't know if it's like a self-preservation thing where I just don't think about like certain things that are so like undefinable, or that I really don't ever think that I'll get an answer to. I couldn't even really spend the time thinking about it. I mean, I did make the point that in non-US markets it's called origins. So I mean, I guess it does that could reinforce unicorns theory, that it does have stuff like, if it's from in English markets or American markets, and then origins in other places. And I know the guy I think in Czech Republic or something, or Romania, said that it had something a very similar meaning in in their market as well, of when translated. So but it's a word that means something along the lines of similar to that, so that at least the people that are looking at From, like the English speakers looking at From, not just like a point of I mean, especially because everybody's being from a different geographical place in the US, that would be like the ultra superficial surface level takeaway from that. Well, they're from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Oh, they're from Phoenix, Arizona. They're from all over the place, but they've come to this place. But it might be, but having it translated to origins, it seems that the term origins seems to draw it farther back in time than just where you're from geographically today. Each different character is from a different place, in the US. No, it might be where they're from. As far as lineage, or maybe where they're from as far as stuff that what links all of these people together, in a way, maybe farther back in the past, or like it's something about their actual origins beyond their geographical location where they were living when they got abducted by the town. So I know I'm kind of like talking in circles.
No, man, and you're reflecting kind of my own view. Is I initially, your most basic reading is From, all these people come from different places, so it's no matter where they're from, they're here. But that's almost, it's one of those brilliant things where it's almost too basic, but then again, it's so basic that it works. I think it's the greater question. I think it's a philosophical question. It's not the question of where are these people from, but it's where are we from? And this is an explanation of somehow where humanity is from. This is sourced in, that's why you have all the dates. It's interspersed within this, almost like a cabin in the woods thing, right? Ever so often humanity has to go through this trial or this level, and somebody has to achieve something for the sake of something grander. There's got to be, you would hope there's a grander meaning to it. And in that context, it's the question is the answer of the show. It's where are we from? Well, we're from wherever we're headed in this. And that's going to be an answer for the grand context of what the basis for all these trials and tribulations that these people have to go through. On the other hand, it could just be the other side of the faraway tree. That's where you're from. And it's just a context of, how did you get here? Well, I was over there. Oh, you came from there. And it's just about travel. And it's about, the linearity of you started here, so you're from there and you're moving that way. And so are you all from the town and you're moving beyond the town? So lots of different ways you could take it. And like Ravener, I'm talking in circles. So
no, it's one of those things where we still just don't really know, I guess. I mean, it could mean any number of different things. From is such a basic word that could really point to so many different things that we're seeing in the show. Like you said, where is everybody from? Where is this from? Where are the monsters from? Which is the next question that I'm seeing here in the chat. Which I think that this is something that they could answer without kind of spoiling the overall plot of the show, the origin of the monsters. How did these monsters really come about? How, or at least they kind of hinted at it in season 2 that the monsters were human at one point. If that is truly the case, what exactly did these humans go through that got them turned into monsters? Something like that I could definitely see them answering, and it really wouldn't spoil too much. It wouldn't spoil the overarching plot of the show if we found out where the monsters came from, I think. Unless where the monsters come from is tied to a bigger mystery that they don't want to reveal till later, maybe. But yeah, something like that I could see the show potentially answering without it spoiling too much. But yeah, no, that is a great question. Where exactly do the monsters come from? What is their original origin? I tend to think, like, even before it was kind of hinted at in season 2 that they were human at first, we were saying for a long time that we think the monsters were human simply because Jasmine in season 1, the Colony House Massacre, she says it wasn't my choice to be like this. For some reason, I just had a feeling she was telling the truth when she said that these monsters didn't have a choice to become this. They were human at one point and something horrific happened to them, and now they're these weird creatures. But how exactly did they become these creatures?
Yeah, and the
go ahead, Ravener. Sorry.
And that was really the only interesting, well, not the only, but one of the only interesting parts of season 2 is when they had the worms and was able to fight back against Smiley. That sent everybody's minds spinning, because it really did drill right back down to the question that everybody's had. What are the monsters? It's just like with the talismans, and when we get to the talismans, I'll be doing these exact same questions. What is the origin of them? What is the process to make them? What about how are the monsters made? Are they even made? Are they even created? Now, Jasmine did say that, but that presupposed that she was something prior to becoming the monster. What was she prior to the monster? Was she just a town resident? We've got no evidence that other town residents have become monsters, whether they've been abducted, whether they've been abducted and changed, whether they changed naturally after being killed. We haven't seen Megan. We haven't seen anybody any of the townsfolk that have been murdered come back as something different than that. Once they're buried, they seem to stay buried. As far as people that die in the town,
and all the monsters seem to have that kind of period correct clothing on them as well, almost like if they were human, they were human a long time ago.
Yeah, nobody's seen Brian. I mean, other than the people on the bus prior to him leaving. Now, that might be something. If Brian actually, rather than being killed and just left out there somewhere prior to Kelly being rebarred to the tree, if Brian does come back, and then somebody that would bring Bacta back into the story, the bus driver, or maybe one of the other bus passengers back into the story, kind of like, hey, that's Brian. He was with us on the bus. But that would, like you're saying, Jeremy, that'll be the first time we've seen any monster with contemporary clothing. At least modern day clothing, in a monster. So I'm definitely interested, about, and that is again something that they could answer, or they could at least start to explore. But they need to start exploring it quicker. They can't drag it over the course of 3 or 4 episodes with a little, couple lines of dialogue tidbit per episode. And that's what made, even the whole Smiley thing, it was just drag. Now, they had the awesome jump scare at, the second day of the autopsy or whatever, but a lot of that could have gone quicker. And again, they can answer that without it, or maybe they can't, though. That's the question. Can they answer that without fundamentally changing the path of the show? Does the origin of the monsters, is the process by
if
which
it reveals
monsters are made,
too much, it's something
really,
they'll save for later. If it's kind of, if the answer to that is inconsequential to the overall mystery of the show, then that's something they could easily answer. But yeah, if the origins of the monster kind of ties into the origin of the town or the origin of Fromville entirely, then I imagine that's something they're probably going to save for the final season. Definitely. But yeah, that's what this show's so great for. There's so many mysteries that we can just dive into and kind of try to figure out what exactly is going on in this crazy world called Fromville that we have been coming to know and love. Kelly did say that they made them watch as she killed Brian, but that was another thing. It was another question that everybody was asking throughout season 2. What exactly did happen to Brian? Where's Brian's body? We never actually see Brian's body. Now, I have a feeling that's another one of those things that'll probably never get answered. I think as an audience, we're probably just meant to believe that the monsters just killed Brian in some horrific way while they made Kelly watch. I don't think there's really anything more to it than that. I think that's something they would have circled back to before season 2 ended if there was more there. Although they could, maybe we'll see, who knows? Maybe we'll see another form of Brian in a later season, or we'll eventually see his body, maybe. Who knows? But I get the feeling little stuff like that could be things that they might just never answer. Or maybe they were hoping that the audience would just assume that the monsters just killed him and that's the end of it. But yeah, so much stuff to dive into.
Going back to the initial question too, what's the meaning of the symbol? I went over this a little bit. I know I differ from both my fellow co-hosts on this, but I think there's two. I think we're pretty well established that there's two sides here. There's a dark side and a light side.
Yeah.
I think the symbol is the message from the light side of the children,
and the red kind of other symbol is the other one.
Right. And this is a message the children were speaking through Jade, because this is the last thing they saw before they were quote unquote sacrificed or died. That was the last image. And that's what was flashing in his head, was the last image of them. They're trying to call to him in the same way that they called to Tabitha in a different way. But this is
Ankui the name of the symbol, maybe.
And maybe who knows, but I think that's the tie-in to the symbol, is that's the one side, and then the red iconography on the cave painting is the other side. That's the darkness.
Yeah, because when you look at those cave paintings, it definitely kind of gives at least it gives you the kind of vibe of a kind of yin and yang type thing going on there, where those two symbols are two different symbols of kind of two different sides, kind of at war with each other, or just in opposition to each other, for lack of better or maybe one is light, maybe yang, one's dark.
Right? You can't have both. And the reason I go that way is, and I hate to keep on going back to Twin Peaks, but in Twin Peaks you had the White Lodge and the Black Lodge. And the White Lodge had the giant, and the Black Lodge had the midget. And in the cave paintings, which in Owl Cave in Twin Peaks, they had similar cave paintings that showed the owl and the midget, and it showed the lodge. And I think it's kind of, you want to run home to mama when you don't know, because it's what you know. So I know kind of the mythology of that, so I am carrying that over here. But I think it's the same thing, because those two images are so prominently displayed in a similar fashion to what you saw there. And the writers are going to be influenced by that, because the writers for this show are going to be in their late 20s to early 40s, and they're going to be influenced by the same cultural things that we're all influenced by. And Twin Peaks was a huge cultural epoch in 89 and 90. So that's there, and that's it. That's in the zeitgeist.
That was Lost before Lost, really.
Exactly. Well, it created, episodic television in that arc-based storytelling sense. Yep. And it hadn't been done before. I mean, you don't have X-Files, you don't have Lost, you don't have anything in the 90s or early 2000s without what Twin Peaks established. But I think that's why I'm running down that way. And then to go back to Bitey's comment, where he said, well, they what's her name that got pinned to the tree said that they killed Brian in front of her. They could have pretended to kill him, or they could have killed him and then they go and have to do a ritual and put worms in him or something to make him a monster. You don't know, but yeah, he's probably dead, but he's dead from the mortal coil. Are the monsters dead? There could be a process that they turned him into one by torturing her or something. And that's another question we don't know. So
there's so many questions that the show has been throwing at us. Like this, what am I knowing how exactly Victor survived for 40 years? It's hinted at that the boy in white helped him, but how exactly did the boy in white help him? How exactly did Victor survive on his own without any talismans, mind you, for 40 years and never get killed? It's a lot of stuff that they have been throwing at us for sure. Howdy from NZ. What is up, NZ? Is that New Zealand? Wow, what is up? Howdy indeed. Howdy indeed. Got Lieutenant Hughes in the house as well. Welcome to all of the new arrivals, everyone who has just recently arrived. It is awesome to see everybody hanging out here tonight. Tonight we are talking about some of From's biggest mysteries and some of the biggest unanswered questions that we are hoping to get answered in season 3 or in later seasons. So as we go on through this night, definitely drop in the comment section some of the biggest unanswered questions that you are hoping to get answered for. What are some of the biggest mysteries on From that are just nagging at you guys the most? We definitely want to know. And there's been some awesome suggestions in here, and I will continue to get to them. Let's see what else we got. I see Jesse in the chat as well. I see Bitey hanging out in the chat. What is up, everybody? I see Dr. Deb has arrived. What is up, Dr. Deb? I see Orlando is here as well. Awesome to see everybody hanging out. I love it. I love it. Awesome stuff. Let's see what else we got. American Comics is hanging out. What is up? We got another question for how did Boyd get the rope from Martin? Martin was not real, just like Boyd's wife, like Father Cautry was not real, or Tom. Ooh, interesting. He got the rope from whatever controls this place. That's what I think. Almost, yeah, maybe it was just like a predetermined destination that he was always supposed to get the rope. There's an interesting theory as well. It's, yeah, there's still so many questions that we need to answer as well. I love it.
And I can't remember who it was that had the question. It may have actually been Lisa as well, talking about so if chained up Martin was not really there, just like chained up Julie and Randall and Mari, where is real life Martin? Is he freaking out somewhere? Is he laying there screaming somewhere?
Yeah, is his physical body somewhere else in Fromville?
Yeah. And allegedly he was there for so long that he had giant and none of those, like everybody else, looked like they looked in the real world. Chained up Martin had the long scraggly fingernails and the long hair and everything else. So maybe he was like in an institution or something where he would have been just like I don't know if his physical body would have been looking like the chained up version, but where else other than like a prison or an institution would anybody even be allowed? I don't even think a prison or a mental institution would allow your fingernails to grow like that or your hair to grow like that scraggly, unless it's just an indication of the amount of time he'd been afflicted with the worms. But then that begs the question, why was there so much urgency in the situation with Julie, Randall, and Mari, where Martin could have the exact same condition, evidently, for God knows how long, like far longer than just, of course, one day.
Right. I think Martin's condition was much different than what was going on with Julie, Randall, and Mari. Julie, Randall, and Mari seemed like something was happening to them, almost like they were in some sort of trance. Martin himself seemed to be the actual vessel of the entity. He was actually housing the entity inside him, which is a little bit different than what I think Randall, Julie, and Mari were going through. I think that's maybe one of the differences there. I think Martin was specifically put there because the entity was trapped inside his body. And something put Martin in this kind of dreamlike prison place to trap that entity in there. I think Martin was just an unnecessary bystander because he happened to have the entity inside him. My big question is, if this is the case, who originally put Martin in that prison? What was the original group, entity, or whatever the case may be? Who or what originally trapped and put Martin in that dungeon is what I want to know.
Right. And because whoever it is, or like individually or as a group in like a ritual, still would have to have both the knowledge and the power to put the entity.
They'd have to know how that place works.
Yeah. And and maybe Martin, maybe Martin was Christopher. Maybe because you'd think, well, why would Martin be the scapegoat? Why would Martin be the one that everybody else puts the entity in and traps them in his form? Maybe he did something egregious against the group. Maybe he did something egregious against the citizenship of the town, where the citizenship of the town, rather than just being a bunch of random people like we see in the town now.
Well, maybe they had onto something there, though.
Yeah, they might have had like ritual knowledge where they're like, hey, let's do a Uno reverse on old Christopher and put this entity that he was using to kill everybody. Obviously Christopher was successful in getting everybody killed. Although I still don't think he actually physically killed them. I think they possessed him. And I'll just repeat this theory for the people that hadn't heard it, though, that Christopher, the reason that Victor's mom told Victor that he had to hide somewhere that Christopher didn't know. I don't think Christopher was going like house to house or spot to spot killing people, and I don't think he massacred everybody out in the middle of the street like in the like where the scene shows. What I do think is that almost like how he was being tortured by this, how Christopher was being tortured by the symbol, how Jade is being tortured by the symbol, Christopher had the same thing. And somehow the entity had access to the knowledge that Christopher had. So even if they didn't possess him and he didn't physically kill everybody, the entity had access to his brain, to his knowledge, and the entity could get inside Christopher's mind, know where everybody's hiding, and then, I mean, there's nothing to say that all those bodies were done. I mean, we see them in the daytime, but that doesn't mean that the murders happen in the daytime. I think they could have gone
it looks
in
like the monsters killed them just by the state of them anyway.
Right.
Like they're ripped in half and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it
And
looks like the monsters got them.
Right. So if the entity who also is controlling is the one holding the spear that the monsters are the tip of, if that entity could access Christopher's knowledge of where everybody's hiding, it would have been really pretty much a turkey shoot for the monsters to go, using Christopher's memories, go to every single place that he knew of that people hid. And that's how, and now they weren't killed on the spot. They were obviously dragged out into the street at some point, but that might just be part of the monsters having fun with their kills too. So but I still think, that the entity or the powers that be accessed Christopher's knowledge of where people hid. That's how everybody got massacred like that. And that's why it was so important for Victor to hide somewhere like that obvious.
Where Christopher couldn't find him as well.
That Christopher.
Yeah, Christopher had some sort of hand in this massacre. That I think they're kind of. I think that part is almost clear at this point. But no, I mean, maybe you could be right. Maybe the entity was able to kind of. We have seen that the boy in white, at the very least, was able to kind of communicate telepathically with Sarah. At the end of season 1, when the boy in white is telling Boyd and Sarah to go into the faraway tree, he's communicating with Sarah, but his lips aren't moving at all. It's almost like he's kind of just directly speaking to her mind. Whereas at the end of season 2, when we see the boy in white talk, he's actually physically talking to Tabitha. There really wasn't, it was different that time. But yeah, what's to say that the entity couldn't kind of, get some information just from Martin's thoughts alone? That is certainly a possibility. I mean, how exactly do the monsters seem to know everything about all of the survivors in town? The monsters know everybody's name. They seem to know almost everything about everybody. How do they know all of that? Maybe they can. Maybe there's a small degree of a low-level telepathic connection there. Maybe.
Right.
Who knows?
And they could either pick it up from every single person, or again, if we're talking about people that are being possessed or having their memories accessed, the ones that are more sensitive. I mean, it doesn't have to be everybody. It only has to be a couple people, like Jade, like the people that have visions and stuff. The ones that are receptive, and like Sarah, the ones that are receptive, if it's two-way street, if they can speak to Sarah, and that maybe they can also receive from her and they can access her memory. So she would know, especially as Sarah, who was the waitress at the diner, she would know every single person's name, maybe even like personal details and stuff. But at least superficially the name.
Get it from one person and they learn everybody else's name. Maybe. Yeah, it's definitely a possibility for sure. Yeah, I mean, and that's what I just love about the show. There's so much stuff that we still really need to pick up on. I love it. We got Dana Marie in the chat as well. What is up, Dana Marie? B. Morgan asks, do the monsters hover? Now, that is a good question. We do see the monsters kind of appear in some very weird places. Obviously, the old granny monster, the first time we see her, she's up on the roof, the second story of Megan's bedroom. When we see Jasmine as well, she's up on the roof of Colony House, nonetheless. And Colony House is a much, much taller structure than your regular kind of raised ranch that is in the house, that's in the town. So yeah, how exactly are these monsters getting on these roofs so quick? Can they just jump really high? Are they just kind of really spry? Do they have just like supernatural type of Captain America type of reflexes and agility and hops? Or could they literally hover? It's who knows? I get the sense, I don't know actually. And part of me thinks that they're probably just really, really agile. They can probably just climb right up a roof really, really easy. But who knows? Maybe they can actually hover. That's a good question. Good question.
Yeah,
Kind
she
of a
definitely was-
Salem's Lot hovering outside the window.
Yeah.
yeah, definitely more nimble than a granny would normally be. Doing
Yeah, very
parkour.
nimble, very
Yeah.
nimble at the
Going
very
back to
least.
what you
Or
were
who knows?
saying,
Maybe they float. Yeah.
and going back to what you were saying, Raven, we are trusting that Martin's name is Martin, and you don't know why it was there. You don't know the context. The other two people were dead, so he could be the Randall of the previous group. He could be the one that broke something or tried to
Okay.
destroy something, and maybe that's why it was there. And that's you don't know. There's so many answers, and again, that's a question: is who was there with Martin from the previous group? How did those three people get there? How were they chosen? We don't know. So
Yeah. Yeah, it's just added to the list of things we don't know. Just like this from Unicorn One, which is a very good question as well. How does Victor's mom know that going to the lighthouse was the way home? Exactly. How did Victor's mother know half of the stuff that she knew? It seems like Victor's mother knew a ton of information that it was just very strange. How did she know about the children? How did she know the children were in the tower? How did she know that the tower was the way home? Tons of stuff that Victor's mother seemed to have figured out, but we have no idea how she actually learned all of this stuff. Yeah, and that's the thing. I really hope we get some flashback scenes in season 3. We got some really good flashback scenes in season 2, of course, which revealed some pretty interesting stuff. Nonetheless, we got the reveal of Victor's sister. And that episode was really good because you got some really good information in these flashback scenes. It wasn't just a flashback scene to have a flashback scene. It was a flashback scene that purposely gave you some answers. So I really hope we get some more flashback scenes in season 3 to when Victor's mother was still alive, and maybe even when Eloise was still alive, because I do think Eloise is still alive, actually. I don't think she is dead. I think Eloise is probably still alive, and maybe she escaped Fromville just like Tabitha did. But yeah, how exactly did Victor's mother figure all of this stuff out? She seemed to know a ton of stuff that just it's very strange how she knew all of it, to say the least. Was somebody helping her? Was she having dreams or premonitions similar to how Jade or Elgin was? I tend to think that maybe was the case. We hear Fatima say that some people just react very strangely to this town. Some people have dreams, weird premonitions, visions, and stuff like that, which we're seeing ourselves. We see Jade has, dreams and premonitions, Elgin as well. Even Ethan has a weird kind of premonition when he first enters the town during the RV crash that we are going to look at in episode 2 on the next watch party this Saturday. I'm really looking forward to diving into Ethan's dream there that he recounts when he wakes up. But yeah, how are people getting some of this information that they just couldn't know any other way other than through some kind of vision or mystical means? Maybe Victor's mother was just one of these characters who was also getting visions. That's the only thing I can think of as to why she knew everything she knew, because she knew a lot. She knew a lot. We got a $10 super chat from Vanessa Milan. Thank you so much, Vanessa. That is incredibly generous of you. Wow. Do they have unlimited gas? If so, then why doesn't a small group take some food, gas, and a talisman, move the tree, and drive? Great question. And again, thank you so much for the $10. We actually do get a little bit of an answer to this at the end of season 1 when Jade and Jim are actually building the radio tower. Now, at the end of season 1, we see Jim and Jade finally complete their radio tower in hopes of sending a signal out there. But one of their biggest problems was finding a proper power source, because apparently they didn't have enough gas to just run the thing hours on end. They would have ended up running out. So that's why they needed to find a way to utilize the electricity to power this radio. So they do kind of explain that, they definitely, it seems like they have a lot of gas from all of the previous cars that have been stuck there. It seems like a lot of vehicles have been stuck here. So I imagine they probably have a decent amount of gas, but I don't think it's unlimited. And I think Jade was hinting to that at the end of season 1. But that was just my explanation on it. It seems like they got a lot of gas, but probably not unlimited to my guess.
Well,
Yeah, no.
even then, gas doesn't last forever. The ethanol
Exactly, it
content
expires.
will collect water.
Yeah,
Exactly.
It'll
And that was one of the
expire
big
after a while. Yeah.
that was one of the big things in The Last of Us that I actually was kind of impressed, because they actually addressed that. Not everybody knows it, so not everybody, not every, especially a Hollywood
Suspend disbelief in
screenwriter will
some
know that.
sign. Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of times, it'll work forever. It'll work as long as it needs to, and then the 1 minute that there's a zombie pounding on your window, that's when it's like, oh dang, the gas has turned bad.
Well,
That
that's
kind
like
of
how
stuff.
Walking Dead was. Rick or Shane or someone would go and siphon a freaking car that's probably been sitting there for years, and the gas would just be good to go. And it's like, what the hell, man? But
But yeah,
sometimes I guess you got to suspend disbelief. I guess I don't know.
yeah,
That's what I chalk it up to anyway.
right. That's the kind of info that not everybody knows, and that it only has like limited applicability, and that's kind of real world knowledge that not everybody knows, but not everybody should know, or should be expected to know. But yeah, but it's funny though. Yeah, you're not going to be hopping in one of those vintage cars from the 50s and driving it off into the thing. Although I guess if he did, the question being, that also leads to the other question. He was driving all of those cars with their flat tires. I don't know at what time. As far as we know, maybe it might have only started with Boyd and Kenny, the flattening of all the tires. Although Ethan did mention that all the tires are flat. Why, when they were driving the RV into the town or through the town, one of the times right before they ended up getting stopped, he said,
Yeah, who
"Why are all
knows
the
who
tires
started
flat?"
that trend?
So he
I get the
was
feeling it
driving.
was Boyd.
Oh, okay, okay.
Personally. But who
Um,
knows? We don't know though. Yeah, who knows why? I mean, was it something that Boyd just continued? But I get the sense it was probably that just seems like a military, something a military mind would come up with a tactic anyway. You want these people to probably drive around in a circle a few times, so they do get the sense that something is seriously wrong here. We haven't turned at all, and we keep ending up in the same spot. So it seems like they want to let them drive in a circle a few times, but at some point they have to kind of stop the car, because nighttime will come and the
yeah.
monsters will come out. So I just thought it was a tactic that Boyd probably came up with, but who knows? Yeah, who knows really? Who knows? Scarlet Fever says, "Yeah, I would love to learn about the rules to this place, as talked about in season 2, episode 10, with Jade and Tom." Yeah, that's a really good scene, I thought, with Jade and Tom in the bar at the in the last episode, where it's funny because Tom mentions about there will be answers down in the caves, similar to how your brain's in your skull and your heart's in your chest. Nature will always put what's most precious in the place that it's most difficult to get to. And I love that analogy, and you can really see the philosopher side of Tom really come out in these moments. Tom, the bartender, of course, it is revealed that he taught philosophy at UCLA before he got stuck in Fromville, and you really see the philosopher side come out in him every once in a while. But yeah,
But that was
I miss
all.
Tom, man. I
Yeah,
really
that was
miss
all
Tom.
Jade's projection of what Tom's personality would be.
Yeah,
Did they interact a whole lot? I guess they may have interacted enough prior that
Jade
because
spent some time in the bar in season 1. Yeah.
okay, because the first thing Jade says is, "You are dead, right?" He established
He
that
said, "Did
Tom
you
was just
die?"
a
Yeah.
figment, yeah, a figment
So
of his
just check it,
imagination.
make sure we're on the same page. But no, I love those little interactions when some of these deceased characters come back, and whether it's the form, and that's been another debate. All of these deceased characters that we're seeing, are they manifestations of Jade's consciousness? Was Father Cautry just a manifestation of Boyd's consciousness, or was this the actual entity appearing to people? I know that hasn't been ever since season 2 has ended, and we've seen this entity kind of what it does, and kind of the entity kind of take the form of Abby a few times. A lot of people were wondering whether Father Cautry and Tom were really just a manifestation of Jade and Boyd's mind, or was that the entity kind of playing tricks? I get the sense it was just a manifestation of Jade's mind, similar to the just because of the nature of the conversation. It seemed like Tom and Jade had, the nature of their conversation was very helping. It didn't seem like Tom was there to kind of manipulate Jade in any way. Although he does kind of manipulate him to go into the caves, but I don't see why the entity would want Jade to go into the caves. It seems like, if anything, the entity wouldn't want Jade to solve these mysteries. But I get the sense it probably was just a manifestation of Jade's consciousness and Boyd's consciousness, where Father Cautry is concerned. But who knows? But yeah, that was a really good scene between those two. And yeah, you hear Tom talk about you hear Jade say, nothing in this place is natural. When Tom goes to Jade and says, nature will always put what's most precious in a place that is most difficult to find. And Jade's retort is, nothing about this place is natural. And Tom says, wrong. nothing about this place is familiar. And I love that comeback because it's true. Just because nothing in this Fromville place isn't familiar doesn't mean there isn't a natural order to things, or rules, as Scarlet Fever puts it. And yeah, who knows? Are we ever going to get what are the quote unquote rules of Fromville? Like I said, it is very unfamiliar, but I have to imagine there is probably some natural order to things in this town. So yeah, I like that, Scarlet Fever. That is a good question indeed. Very good question indeed. The monster talked to Julie, got shot in the left shoulder. The bullet hole was gone in the bar with Kelly. And that was right. I did notice that as well, Bitey. Yes, the very first, that was one of the first monsters we see, actually, the monster on the porch that is kind of trying to tempt Julie. Now, when we first see him, he's getting shot in the shoulder. But when we next see him at the bar, yeah, the shoulder wound doesn't seem to be there. So it's very strange. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure what that meant, if it was just a production error or if there's something more to that.
We were talking about that. I mean, and they're always dry and they're always clean and their clothes are always intact for the most part. So we thought that it might just be a superficial glamour, the same thing that makes him look human versus looking like a monster. Their clothing could be perfect while the glamour is intact. Now, the question I would have is if they ended up killing that kid with the shoulder, with the shot to the shoulder, and he lost his glamour, so he would look like a monster like Smiley did. Would his shirt also look tattered?
Would it be ripped then?
Yeah, okay. Without the glamour intact.
Maybe almost like maybe their human form isn't really a human form at all. The show kind of makes it appear like they have the ability to kind of shapeshift in between human form and monster form. But what if monster form is their only form and this human form is kind of like a glamour? Yeah, that could be the case.
Yeah, rather than being a complete illusion, they could really just be lifting the glamour off of themselves and it does make it, their body does transform. And even if they are like physically changing from human form to monster form, on a place, at least we've kind of established, I don't know if I can't speak for everybody, but we kind of have the notion that these monsters they're the part that does work on the fear. So if you're at the very last second before they give you a kiss, they give you the monster face, that has got to be amping up the terror to 11 right before they make that kill. So it would seem like it would be the most important. Also, somebody early in the show made the mention that because we were talking about the fear inspiring the electricity, but they're like, well, there was 96 days without an incident, so that couldn't be the case. But that doesn't mean that they're not out there screeching in the woods and making people afraid during the night. They just had 96 days without successfully
an incident. Yeah, I'm sure they were still trying to. I'm sure that the monsters were still trying to get an incident. I'm sure they're still out there every single night trying to get into houses and trying to tempt people. But yeah, it seems like they had a good stretch of time there, 96 days, where they were lucky enough that they didn't lose anybody.
Yeah, there's probably a monster down in the caves with a dry erase board saying days since last
kill. Yeah. I like that. How did Tabitha end up in the hospital in Maine? And yeah, there's a bunch of questions that kind of spurred in and of itself. Obviously, it's one of the biggest mysteries coming out of season 2. Where exactly is Tabitha, and how exactly did she get there? We see she finally makes it to the tower. The boy in white pushes her out the top of the tower, and next thing we know, she's waking up in what appears to be the real world. And I know that's another question in and of itself, whether she is back in the real world, whether she's in another part of Fromville entirely. I guess either could be the case. I get the feeling she probably is back in the real world. And I know a lot of people have tied the image that they see at the end of season 2 of her looking out the window to Camden, Maine. A lot of people seem to think that this is Camden, Maine. And being from the Northeast, born and bred up here, this does look a lot like your average northeastern town. It could be Camden, Maine, or it could be any other northeastern town in Maine or Massachusetts. I mean, like the town I grew up in looks literally just like this. So I definitely understand people making that connection to this being Camden, Maine, and who knows, maybe it is. I definitely get the sense that it is the real world, though. I don't think she is in some other part of Fromville. She could be. Like I said, I could be wrong, but I just think it'll be a much more interesting story going forward if Tabitha is back in the real world And her story from season 3 going forward is trying to find a way back into Fromville, as opposed to her just being in another portion of Fromville that we haven't been introduced to yet. Like I said, that definitely could be the case. There is some weird stuff going on in some of these scenes. But I think personally she probably is back in the real world, and I do get the sense she might even meet up with Eloise in season 3. Like I said, I don't think Eloise is dead. I do think Eloise escaped Fromville, similar to how Tabitha escaped Fromville, and I definitely don't think it was a coincidence that the writers gave Tabitha that specific lunchbox at the end of season 2. If Victor just wanted to give Tabitha some snacks, he could have put it in any old bag. The writers specifically have Victor giving her that lunchbox for a reason. I think that lunchbox will come into play into season 3, because what better way to connect to Tabitha and Eloise than that lunchbox that Eloise would probably recognize as Victor's if she did see it. But that's just my tinfoil hat theory for season 3. I'm hoping Eloise and Tabitha kind of team up and try to find a way back into Fromville. I do tend to think they are in the real world, but who knows? Who knows at the end of the day? Now, have you guys landed one way or the other on that? The big debate that has popped up: is Tabitha back in the real world, or is she just stuck in some other part of Fromville? What do you guys think? And let me know in the chat what you guys think as well.
I think it's another level of Fromville.
Okay.
I'm just there. That's the next tier. Just like the
next level, kind of.
The caves were the next accomplishment. This is another accomplishment. You're constantly reaching towards something, and each time it gets quote unquote a little bit higher in the equation.
Okay.
And I've heard a lot of different theories. The thing that really sealed it to me was that little emblem on the hospital thing, on the screensaver of the hospital or whatever. I was like, well, because I'm open to anything, and when somebody's
absolutely
when the scene changes completely so drastically like this, I was like, you know what, I'm not going to prejudge. I'm not even going to try to predict, because I don't know. I'm going to let them take, but they have to put, and they don't have to, of course, but they chose to put that little tell in there. And the symbol for the hospital was so similar. No, not exact. It wasn't like a 1-for-1 analog.
But it's a little similar. It's akin to the Jade symbol. And another thing that I didn't even notice on my first run was we see 47 pop up again. 2 + 2, 4. 2 + 5, 7. Another 47 thrown at us potentially.
The thing is, you can get the number stuff. I'm a little less.
Who knows what the number stuff is going to mean? There is a lot of 4s and 7s, but who knows what that's going to amount to, if anything at all.
And I bet they do. I bet they probably do that just to get the numerology people up in a going.
Let's get the lost 4, 8, 15, 16, 23, 42 crowd up in arms again. Yeah.
You can't. You can
look at him with memorization.
If we add these but subtract these, I think I can get. You can give me any numbers, and I can add and subtract them to make any other number. I think. You can
get so many different combinations there. Yeah, I know, it's true. Yeah, but I saw a lot of people pointing that out, that the 2 + 2 is 4 and the 2 + 5 is 7. There's another 47. I thought, hey, maybe, yeah.
And I think on Tony's
and if you divide by the number of people that are in the town, you get this number.
There was 47 again. Yes.
Yeah. They said also, and Bitey says the exact same. If she's on level 2 of the hospital, why is she so high up? Somebody said, that she's super high up for a hospital. And I've known hospitals to be maybe 6. I've known it like 6- and 7-story hospitals, and I'm sure they go higher, but I don't know how high she is in comparison to.
Right. Yeah, she's pretty high up. She's pretty high up.
It could be on a bluff too that overlooks the harbor.
Okay, true. Yeah, and a couple of there's not. Yeah, you're exactly right, Aldous. There's nothing to say what the elevation of the actual land that the hospital is built on. It doesn't all have to.
Yeah, we see the sea level down there, but when there's no telling that this couldn't be like you said, up on a hill or something maybe.
But back to the original question. Though, I don't believe for one second that she's in the real world.
No, she may have another Peter. Both of you, just to be clear, both of you think it's another part of Fromville, not the real world.
Yes, and she may have interactions. Awesome. She may have interactions with Eloise. The whole stuff that everybody.
I think wherever she is, Eloise is there too. If this is another part of Fromville, I do think this is where Eloise escaped to too. Either way, I do hope that we get a team up between those two. Yeah.
And we're gonna see.
I gotta say, that's kind of depressing if she runs into Eloise, because that means that Eloise never got out of this tier. If it is part of Fromville,
But what if
Yeah.
what if we're in a level of Fromville? We don't even know that. I mean, Eloise could be living a normal, happy life with a husband and kids, and right in Camden, Maine. She may live right on the harbor and go sailing on the weekends and have a happy life where she's not in imminent peril of being disemboweled by monsters. That's a plus. That's a win in my book. I mean, it might still be a fake world that she never escaped, but at least, and again, and that leads us to, what if our world is that? What if the level beyond Eloise is people sitting there watching TV talking about a TV show?
Yeah, who knows? Who knows? Maybe it is
The
all just a
Inception
Fromville
dream
within
within a dream
Fromville.
within a dream within a dream.
Yeah, maybe, maybe. Yeah, and yeah, definitely let us know in the chat. What do you guys think? Do you think she is in another part of Fromville, or do you think she is in the real world? Yeah, it's like I said, I could definitely see it going to either or. Another thing that a couple people thought were bringing up, that there isn't any movement outside the window, and to that point, I'm a little more skeptical just because it's literally a 2-second scene. And I've counted it. It's like 2.3 seconds that we see outside the window. So of course you're not going to see much movement, especially at that height and in that fast of a scene. So the fact that there isn't any movement outside of the window, that didn't really raise any alarms, just to me personally, just because it's such a super fast scene. You're not going to see much movement up that high. But who knows? Maybe that's another clue as to something else going on there. And obviously, there's the big debate as to whether or not that is Tabitha's reflection in the mirror there, or someone else's reflection. I think it's Tabitha. I don't think that is anything more than just Tabitha's reflection, maybe with a glare in it, making her hair look a little bit blonder than it is. I don't think there's anything more there. But then again, I could be wrong. Maybe it could be a totally different reflection entirely. I know a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, I agree. I agreed with that. I mean, I think they probably used like a yellowish, orangish light from the outside,
Just looks
the
like a
lighting
glare.
people
Yeah.
to simulate sunlight or whatever. And what we've got, yeah, it looks like kind of like a sunshine highlights on it. Because man, that for a show that's pretty much bare bones as far as special effects, why would they bother putting a fake reflection on the glass,
It
the window
just it
glass?
seems, yeah, it seems like a weird thing. I mean, like I said, and I fall prey to it all the time. Just this show, just by its very nature, by its very mystery box nature, throwing so much stuff at us in the background, that I tend to overanalyze things at times, or I'll see things that just aren't there at the end of the day. And I do think that this maybe could be one of those cases where we overanalyze things so much that we try to find answers and everything. Or who knows? Like I said, maybe there is something to this whole reflection theory that is
Is
going
there
on there.
is there a super zoom on just the reflection where we can see maybe? Well, see, and I don't even know. No, she has the makeup, or I mean, I'm assuming they didn't actually injure the actress, so that the makeup of the injuries, the facial injuries. So
Mm.
on the face in the reflection, are the injuries reflected too? It looks like they are, right, on her cheek there,
It's hard to
on her
tell.
right
It's it's
cheekbone.
it's it's hard to tell really. But it
Okay.
does kind of me personally. It does give me the kind of overall kind of silhouette of what Tabitha's reflection would look like if it had a glare in it.
Okay.
It doesn't really look like that much of a different face to me personally. It's kind of got that round Tabitha face look. But
Yeah.
as far as the injuries, it's really hard to tell. Yeah,
Yeah, because they're
it's
like,
just
yeah, I
not
mean,
clear enough.
because they'd put the makeup on her when she's in the bed, and they say, okay, then I'll get up and now go to the window and look out the window. I thought for sure there was going to be something different there when she pulled the curtains back. I thought it was going to be maybe Jim laying on a bed too, or I didn't know that
Ooh.
those curtains would have been. I thought they were in, it could have been 100 other different kinds of reveals other than the harbor at Camden, Maine.
Yep.
But when they pulled that back, yeah, they would just tell the actors, okay, you're made up for it with the scratches and facial injuries. Pull the thing back, and I just assumed there'd be a pane of glass there, and I think Camden, Maine is a CGI. I don't think they're actually
Oh yeah,
filming out a window,
that looks like it's a CGI town back
but the
there.
glass.
I imagine that's some green screen. It looks like the glass is real. Looks like the building she's in is real. It looks like they probably just hung a green screen right outside of this window to
Right.
give this background, most likely.
Yeah, and that might be why there's like a little bit of distortion with the reflection, is because they have to overlay that real reflection with their CGI whatever, and try to make it look look at least remotely believable. And I think they're making an honest effort to try to make it look like a harbor, because we have, I mean, even though everybody has said it's Camden, Maine, they've never actually said that in the show. I mean, that might be what
it
it is,
hasn't been confirmed.
but it may not be
It's a running
intended to be
theory.
that.
It's a popular
Yeah,
theory,
because
but
they didn't say
we
they're
don't
in
know
Nova
for sure.
Scotia. Yeah, they haven't said we're in Nova Scotia either, but we know that it's Nova Scotia where they're at.
Where they
Like
film,
as far as the town, the town,
Yeah.
the Fromville. So yeah, I think that might be their just best effort to reconcile a CGI backdrop with an actual reflection on the glass. And I don't see anything deeper than that. I think you're exactly right. I think I was never really sold on it. So, but I mean, again, like, everybody's welcome to follow that rabbit hole as far as they like.
Yeah,
And
I could be wrong. It could
I
be
tell you
something
what,
more there. And that's what's
yeah,
fun about this show. It throws so much mysteries at you. There's so many different places that you can go with it. And that's what I love about this theory in particular. I mean, the chat, and at least in my comment section, has been pretty kind of almost split right down the middle, 50-50, in terms of people thinking that she is in the real world and people thinking that she's in another part of Fromville. So I love when a mystery like this comes around and the chat is like really divided on it, but everybody has been very respectful when they talk about it, which is really cool. That's awesome.
And one thing I guarantee you guys, if it does turn out to be something more than what I think it is, which I think it's nothing, if it does turn out to be more, I'll be the first in line to say, man, I was 1,000%
Oh,
wrong.
I'm wrong
and you
all
were
the time. There's
1,000%
nothing
right.
wrong with being wrong. That's what
But
that's what we say. Dive into that rabbit hole, guys. Have
But-
fun with these things.
Yeah, and this is one, and I think there's a show like this, because you can go down every rabbit hole, and you use a lot of mental, time and effort and energy to suss out these theories and establish little things. And that's why I only take little baby steps as far as my theories. Like, can we establish this as a fact? Can we take for granted that this is a fact? We don't know for sure, just like the spiders. We've never seen a giant spider. I'm still convinced there is a giant spider, but we've never seen one.
Alluded to a lot, but we haven't seen it yet. Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, we have to really, if we're talking about almost like court of law level stuff, we're like, what can we take for granted as established fact? What is just strongly hinted at? What is literally said verbatim in the, explicitly in the script from one person to another? And even then, if it's said in the script, was it from somebody who's reliable? What is the reliability level? We just don't know. So many different things.
So many different things. And another thing that actually has been a lot of people have been bringing up is, it was Tabitha potentially right? Are the people that are left in Fromville, are they going to find Tabitha's body just laying at the bottom of that lighthouse, and she's actually back in the real world? For some reason, that theory seems to be gaining a lot of steam. I'm seeing a lot of people mentioning it in the comment section. Maybe Abby was right. Maybe this was all just a dream. Hell, even Martin says it to Boyd at the beginning of season 2. What if Abby was right? What if it's all just a dream? Some people are convinced that the next time we see that lighthouse, the next time we see the tower, we're actually going to see Tabitha's body laying at the bottom of it, but she's actually back in the real world, indicating that you do have to die in Fromville to escape Fromville entirely. I mean, it's possible. It's definitely possible.
This might be the good. Steam. Yeah, this might be the good version of being shackled in a dungeon. The bad people, when you're a pawn of the bad people, willingly or not, because I don't think Julie was necessarily bad, but when you're affected by the bad people, you end up in the dungeon chained up. And if you're affected by the good people, like I know some people think that the boy in white isn't good, because who would push somebody out a window if they're good? But what if this is the good version? What if this is a good version of being chained up in a dungeon? You're in a hospital and you're living your life out in Camden, Maine. Again, this might be the good. Yeah, this might be the good way, and she might run into Eloise, who is also we have to assume is good, just because she was a child. Maybe she has a wife, or maybe she has a husband and kids, and is living happily ever after in this version of whatever. And the time in Fromville was either just a nightmare she has from time to time, or maybe she blocked it out completely, or maybe she learned early on that she can't tell anybody about that there's a world where her mom's dead, and her brother Victor is still off in this imaginary world where people get murdered and when the sun sets. She learned early on that you can't tell that story because nobody will believe her. And that's where she will come across Tabitha, and she'll see that lunchbox. And that the same way Victor suppressed his memory of a sister, she might have been, she might have
But she might have
suppressed.
forgotten all about Fromville
Yeah,
entirely until she sees that lunchbox, and maybe it kind of comes flooding back. Then that I would
yeah,
love to see.
yeah.
That's
Because
that's
yeah,
that's that's a good idea too. I
Victor
like
didn't
that.
like talking about it because it was a painful memory. Maybe Eloise didn't talk about it
Kind of
because she,
subconsciously has been purposely avoiding
yeah,
it. Maybe. Yeah.
yeah, because she knows every time she tries to explain. It's like when you're talking about your own dream. You ever try to explain one of your own dreams to somebody, and it just it made perfect sense to you at the time, but there's so many. Oh well, my third grade teacher was there, and then I was over, then I was visiting, a Caribbean fishing boat, and then I thought, like, how do you even explain that and try to make it make sense? You can't, and
Mm.
the more you try to explain it,
Some things you can only experience. You can't really
yeah.
explain at the end of the day.
or like
Um,
yeah, about how people try to explain like taking DMT and going to like the eighth dimension and stuff, and
yeah,
it's like,
it's not
all
explainable. You
right,
got
shut
to
up, guy.
experience it.
All
Yeah.
right, cool story, bro. Thanks for sharing that one, bro.
And this brings, and Aquabud brings up a good point as well. If they are in a level two, and it almost seems like if this is a level two of Fromville, and what is it? The kind of the Ed Truman show level of Fromville. That would mean the hospital lady is in it. Everybody in this world has to be maybe in on some sort of cover or something. Like I don't see this being some sort of level two of Fromville. I think that just makes things way more complicated than they need to be. And I think just from an overall storytelling standpoint, it's a much more interesting story. Just for me personally, I think my personal opinion, I think it's a much more interesting story if Tabitha is back in the real world and she's doing whatever she can in her power to try and get back to her family in Fromville. It would just add another extra dimension to the show that kind of it broadens the show out a little bit more. It takes the show not out just from Fromville. You kind of have you'll have these other arcs that you can kind of pay attention to Tabitha back in the real world, her investigating whatever she can possibly investigate to try and find Fromville again at some point. I just think that would make for a much more interesting story writing wise, as opposed to her just unlocking some other new level of Fromville where there's a hospital and an entire world that everybody's kind of just what in on the joke. Is this the Ed Truman part of Fromville? Maybe it could be the
Okay.
case, but
So
I don't
let's
know.
take that and go back to our discussion about what does from mean. Did we spend an entire 2 episodes and that from is actually where Tabitha came from? So in season 3, when we're talking about Tabitha and she's in the real world, where did you come from? Well, I came from. You know what I mean? Like, is that what it's all about? Now the story is actually not about anything we've seen before. It's about her getting back to there and getting her family out. Is that the from aspect?
Yeah, maybe exactly. Yeah, what exactly is from alluding to? Maybe yeah, maybe it's that. Who knows? Who knows? Yeah, so many freaking questions that this show is throwing at us, and I love that we are kind of sitting here and just kind of collectively trying to solve the mystery of what exactly is going on in this crazy freaking world. It is fun. It is a lot of fun. But I love the theories. I love how they're going back and forth. Is she, in another part of Fromville? Is she back in the real world? What exactly is going on there? I have a feeling we will probably find out very early in season 3 if she actually is in the real world or if she has unlocked some other kind of next level, so to speak, of the Fromville dimension or whatever it is at this point. I'm looking forward to finding out. I am looking forward to finding out for sure. The one thing that makes me question real world is the directory sign in the hospital reads level 2. Yes, that's right, level 2. Yet Tabby is clearly on more than the second floor. There's an interesting point as well, Dr. Deb. Yeah, we do see the level 2 sign, and judging by how high up she is, it looks like she's probably on at least higher than the second floor, by the look of it, anyway. But yeah, there's a good point. There's a good point. She's on the 22nd floor, says Woodrow. Oh, okay. I'll have to go back and look for that. I didn't see a 22nd floor. Well, we do see the 2225, indicating that yeah, that could be the 22nd floor, or that could be the second floor. Just the 225th room on the second floor. Some hospitals do tend to do it like that. So yeah, it could be the 22nd floor, or it could just be the second floor. But yeah, so many freaking questions are going on with Tabitha. Where exactly is she? Snuggy thinks she is in the real world as well. I think she is in the real world. A lot of people seem to think that she is in another part of Fromville. I cannot wait to find out where she really is. And I'm looking forward to seeing what Tabitha's arc in general is going to be in season 3 on. Like, I know I have my personal hopes of it being Tabitha trying to find a way to come back into Fromville to rescue her family. But what if, like we have seen, memories play some really weird tricks on people in this show. And I know a lot of people seem to think that Eloise did get out and maybe she just doesn't even remember being in Fromville entirely. And what if that's something that Tabitha is faced with in season 3, that she's kind of slowly starting to lose her memories that her family is back in Fromville the longer she is in the real world. So it's kind of like a race against time for Tabitha to get back to Fromville before she forgets everything entirely. There's just so many places that they could take it. I just cannot wait to see what Tabitha's arc is going to be in season 3. That character, more than any other character, I'm really looking forward to seeing where they're going to go with her.
Yeah, and this is making me think more and more of like almost thematically or scene-wise, pacing-wise. This reminds me very much of Jade in the Cave. We saw the beginning of it. We haven't seen the end of it. We've seen the beginning of Tabitha, and now this was the big shocker, the big reveal at the end to leave us all gasping and like, oh my God, rebel, talking about it. But realistically, they could have done this scene before the Jade in the Cave scene and ended with him looking up and seeing the roots in the shape of a symbol, and it would have been the same thing. Oh man, we know the beginning of this.
I feel like this was a bigger oh shit than that, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Just because the Jade looking up at the symbol thing, it didn't give us, I mean, it was a cool reveal, but in terms of giving us actual information, it wasn't a big, real reveal. It still didn't tell us, we still don't know what the symbol means, what its purpose is, or anything like that. But seeing this, I feel like it was a little bit more of an oh shit moment, like just the notion that Tabitha might actually be in the real world and she left her family back in Fromville. I thought that was a pretty good spot for them to end it on. But no, the Jade thing was a nice reveal as well. I just felt, you guys know maybe that's just my personal bias. You guys have heard me say in the past I was a little disappointed with the Jade thing. I was expecting a little bit more of a reveal than what we got, but
I think I think they had so many plot lines that they had to leave with cliffhangers, and they were just like bam, 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 knocking them out, and then also trying kind of to, and the writers felt like the whole thing with the screaming and the Boyd crushing the music box was going to be sufficient to satisfy everybody as far as, hey, something happened, something got done, and that was the imminent peril. And that's one thing that I talk about in the first season that made it so much better, or actually the first episode of the first season. So, and it happened again and again throughout the first season, where they give you imminent peril, where your overarching themes and your overarching conflicts and stuff take a back seat to your immediate solving your problems about immediate death, just like in the scene in the RV, just like, what do you do? How do you get out of this? We're going to die immediately. And I think they tried to add that in as to the second season with these people are going to die and we're all reconciled with death because nobody can go to sleep and we're all going to die if we go to sleep. And then here's Julie, who everybody likes for the most part. Then there's Randall, and then there's Mari. What are we going to do? They're all going to die. And I think the writers felt like having Boyd resist, the friggin' fifth time that Abby appeared to him, and finally smashing the music box. And I think they probably felt like having the torch be the key to, and to be fair, that was kind of cool. I will admit, when he had, and adding the shot to the shoulder, I mean, he was shot in the arm, so he was already hurting enough. And then the lighter didn't light. Thankfully, they didn't belabor that part. But, the lighter failed like the first time or two. Then finally, boom, when that torch whooshed to life, and then he's back in the dungeon. That I thought was certainly a cool scene. But I think the writers really were staking the entire season on that scene and that whole sequence after that. And I didn't think it was enough to redeem everything, because everything else was going so slowly and did by necessity have to be left unresolved. So that's one thing that we can say. All the stuff with Jade and all the stuff with Tabitha, all this other stuff, is unresolved. It's still a lot, and that also indicates that it's going to be critical to the ongoing story in season 3 and, God willing, 4 and 5 plus. So that's what I got.
Right. No, I completely agree with you, Raven. When you're talking about, if you look at this as a series of books, season 1 was book 1, season 2 was book 2. One of the things you always want to make sure you do in an encapsulated story is you have an end, a definitive end to that arc of that story, but you continue on. And the music box definitely was the opening and the closing of season 2. I think you're right. It didn't have the effect I think they were going for. And in that regard, they've got to, if hopefully they listen to like the fan reaction and they hear what people are saying and they compensate and address that in season 3, whether they address more on the music box or they just move past it and resolve it. But season 1 had that open end, and it's kind of like the Star Wars to Empire Strikes Back thing. Like you want to end on whatever opposite note you ended on in the previous one. If you're going to go high, then go low. And episode 1 kind of ended low, and then this kind of ended in the middle. You didn't really have that great accomplishment of we've accomplished something. It which would have been great if there would have been a little bit more at the top of the lighthouse, like a little bit more of a reveal, and then Tabitha gets kicked out. That's one thing, because then that's going to throw you for a loop. You got an answer, and now here's a new one, and then you're sitting with that hook for season 3. So I think you're dead set, man. I agree with you completely.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. And Aldous and I don't always agree, but this is like twice in one episode. Yeah. And again, and that's going super meta too, because then now I'm putting myself in the mind of the writers and trying to predict what they think, what they were thinking, what they were going for, and did it do? But and the other side of it is they had so many other plot lines that they needed to tie up or at least address in, even if we consider episodes 9 and 10 as a single episode or a single part of a whole. How do I even say it? They had so many plot lines that they needed to either leave hanging,
they weren't going to get to all of it.
Plus while still providing some sort of resolution
and setting some new stuff up for season 3. Yeah, they weren't going to get to everything.
And that's not to say that there's people that like watched it at a more superficial level, because I would have to say that we're super fans, and maybe even we have 125 something plus super fans pretty much like watching us that actually care.
Yeah, I know everybody in the chat is dissecting the hell out of the show just like we are, and that's what makes it so fun to have these discussions about everything.
Yeah. So I mean, maybe more people were satisfied about it, and we're just, because we care so much. We're disappointed because we love you so much. Yeah.
And I wasn't even really disappointed. I mean, like I said, I was expecting season 2 to be much more heavy on the mystery than it was on answers. I was hoping for a little bit more, at times, but overall, I mean, I was expecting season 2 to be much more heavier on mystery than it was on answers. But going into season 3, hopefully we do start to see some of these things get answered and fleshed out a little bit more, and maybe just get a little bit more of a satisfying, even if it's not answered fully, just a little bit more of an evidence as to where certain things are going, as opposed to just mystery 24/7, which is what kind of season 2 was for the most part. It was kind of heavy mystery with very few answers. And like I said, I'm totally cool with that. It was still only season 2. It's still very early on in this overall story. Hopefully they get as many seasons as they need to properly tell this story, as many as they think they need. Hopefully they get them all. But yeah, going into season 3, hopefully we start to get just a little bit of more, just some smaller answers here and there. Like I said, it doesn't have to be anything earth-shattering that kind of, spoils anything too big on the show, but some of these smaller things, hopefully they start to wrap up a little bit more. But I think they will. I definitely think season 3 will be far more. I think season 3 will give us far more answers than season 2 did at the very least, anyway. Tabitha's injuries are consistent with falling through glass, but of course completely inconsistent with hitting the ground. So portal between the glass and ground. That's kind of what I was thinking as well. And I believe a lot of you were thinking something similar. You see the wounds on Tabitha, and it definitely looks like some of the cuts on her face could potentially be from just the glass shattering as she went through the glass and getting cut a little bit. But yeah, obviously she clearly didn't fall from anything as high as the lighthouse really is, or she would have been deader than a freaking pancake at that point. So yeah, what exactly happened? Is there some sort of weird kind of portal? Is that one of the ways out of Fromville, that you have to kind of take a freaking swan dive off the top of the lighthouse to get out, a leap of faith, as it were? I don't know. I tend to think that, yeah, maybe she went through some sort of weird portal thing, but there is also a lot of people are thinking that maybe Tabitha's body is down there at the bottom of the lighthouse, and that is how you ultimately get out. You have to die in Fromville to get out to the real world, which I suppose either is possible, but I don't know. I'm leaning a little bit more towards that. Yeah, she went through some sort of weird kind of portal or entrance or doorway when she went out off that ledge, but that's just what I'm kind of leaning towards. But who knows, really? Do you guys have a lean either way on that? Do you think she went through some sort of portal when the boy in white pushed her, or how exactly do you think she ended up where she ended up?
I'm on record. She elevated a level, so she's just in a different tier of Fromville. So I don't think it's
So,
a
but if
portal
that's
or
the case,
anything.
she had to go through some sort of entrance to get there. If she's not at the bottom of the lighthouse, she had to go through some sort of door to get to this other part of
Well, I
Fromville,
mean, it's
because they
just
said that
going
they,
out the
they
just going out the lighthouse. I think when you look at this, I mean, everything's kind of backwards. So kind of down is up and up is down. So by getting pushed out, did she go up into quote unquote the next tier? It's the same question as Boyd lighting the torch and then immediately being in the lighthouse. Like, does that what did he go through a portal? We didn't see a portal. He just lit it and he was there. So I think it's the same kind of thing though.
Mhm. Yeah, but
Okay.
I mean, either way, that it had to be some sort of kind of door that she went through. I mean, her body didn't land at the bottom of the lighthouse, obviously. So if the lighthouse is some sort of exit, then that stands to reason. Yeah, she went through some sort of kind of door or portal, for lack of a better term, to
Yeah.
get into this second level. Because then
See,
I believe they said some hikers found her on a trail, I believe.
right, and I don't
Um,
know if that's actually. I mean, I don't know if I believe that story, and I'm not really
if that's
necessarily.
true, yeah.
Yeah, I don't really subscribe to Aldous' level theory, but that it necessarily is a level, or that somehow Tabitha is like has advanced somehow. It's possible that, I mean, it's entirely possible, but I'm not entirely sold on it. Although, and I do, but we do agree that it is different. It's different than Fromville, but it's not. It's still within the realm and the control of the entities that control Fromville.
Hmm.
I think, but and I think you're dead on though. All this as far as like the being pushed out of the lighthouse, it didn't need to be. It could have been anything. It could have been any sort of port. I mean, was it a portal? It had to be something like a pass, some sort of passage through.
Yeah.
So being pushed out the window would have been the exact same as walking through an archway, as the same as opening a cabinet door, as the same as any other like basically iconic signifier of passing through one place to another. Now, granted, she did it backwards from a very high height,
From a very high
with,
swan dive, yeah.
and not voluntarily, but the act of passage to me probably is every bit satisfying. As it satisfies the criteria of going through some sort of passage from A to B, and whether B is another level, or whether B is a level indicating that she's advanced in the test, if you go with the test theory, or if whether B is just another scene, another backdrop for the powers that are controlling everything and manipulating everybody. It that part, what B signifies, is irrelevant. It's the passage between A and B, and that's what I thought that was, being thrown out the lighthouse versus walking through a door versus stepping through using a Ouija board to open up a hell mouth in the ground or something.
Right.
It all would have been the same to me.
Hmm. Yeah, it's regardless whether she's in kind of some sort of level two, as it were, or maybe in the real world. I think she's in the real world personally, but yeah, it seems like she went through some sort of kind of doorway, or yeah, some sort of exit portal, whatever you want to call it, for lack of a better term, to end up wherever she ended up. because clearly, like I said, she isn't at the bottom of the tower, or maybe she is. I know a lot of people seem to think that her physical body is at the bottom of the tower, and that's how he kind of escaped. I mean, I don't see that being the case personally, but I guess we will find out. And and which begs the question: will she make it back into Fromville, or back to her family at the very least? Will she make it back to Jim, Julie, and Ethan by the end of season 3? Now, there's a good question. I definitely get the feeling that will be her arc going into season 3, trying to find a way back. Will she find a way back before season 3 ends? It's hard to tell. I get the sense probably not. I get the sense Tabitha is probably on a pretty long journey ahead of her before she makes it her way back to her family. But who knows? Maybe they could wrap that up within season 3 by itself. Maybe she could get back to Jim and everyone in season 3 alone. It's definitely possible. Definitely possible. I'm not sure, though. I am not sure. Let's see what else we got in the chat. Victor put a drawing of Julie in the lunchbox. Is that so Tabitha won't forget Julie? Is that so Julie really is Julie really dead because Victor draws dead people so he won't forget them? I thought that was pretty weird that if that is a drawing of Julie, I thought it was very weird because, like you said, Victor says earlier in a few episodes ago when Ethan tries to give Victor a drawing of him, Victor kind of won't even accept it. He doesn't even want to accept it at first. He like you said, he thought that drawings are for things that are no longer there anymore, so you can remember them. So yeah, why exactly is he drawing a picture of Julie if he only draws things that aren't there anymore? That was a very puzzling question for me. And yeah, why did he put it in the lunchbox? Did he just forget it was in? I don't think he just forgot it was in there. I know some people were thinking that it was just in there because it was just wrapping up some food, that there was really nothing more to it, but I don't know. It's hard to tell. If he did deliberately put that in there so she maybe wouldn't forget, maybe that is the case. Who knows? It's tough. That's a tough one there. But I thought it weird that Victor would even draw a picture of Julie, like you said, because he usually only draws things that are dead and gone so he can remember them. So it's that's a puzzling one. That is a puzzling one. The only answer we got is that the symbol is what the children see, the roots, but it only brought on more questions. And yeah, that was kind of my, not problem with the scene, but just my one little kind of nitpick with the Jade scene was where, yes, it does kind of establish a nice connection between the Ankui children and the symbol, but you don't really learn anything beyond that. And I guess that's one thing I was really hoping that we would get a little bit more of an answer to, especially after we hear in some of the behind the scenes features, the creator of the show, the showrunner of the show, excuse me, say that there is a clue down in those caves that will help Jade solve the mystery of what that symbol really means. So I was hoping for a little bit more of a reveal down in the caves, but I definitely think those reveals are going to be coming for sure. For sure. The music box, Nightmare Dream would have seemed more like a season 3 monster, and that's another question I wanted to bring up. What exactly is up with the entity? And I actually recently just put out a video on the channel after the stream ends. I'd love for you guys to go and check it out and leave your thoughts and predictions down in the comment section below. But in that video, I was asking what exactly was what was the entity ultimately after? What was the entity's end game? And have we seen the last of it? We do see at the end of season 2, Boyd does kind of thwart the entity's attempt to do whatever it was attempting to do when it smashes the music box, which releases Julie, Randall, and Mari. Because we hear Sarah say earlier in that episode that once Julie, Mari, and Randall are dead, at that point it is too late, indicating that whatever the entity was planning, once Julie, Mari, and Randall were dead, it would have been too late. It would have been endgame at that point. But what exactly was the entity planning? And do you think we will see the entity again in the future? I do. I have a feeling we have not seen the end of this weird kind of nightmare entity that was plaguing our survivors at the end of season 2. I do think it still probably is out there somewhere. I don't think Boyd killed it by destroying that music box. I definitely think it is going to return in some way, shape, or form. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think the entity is gone for good, or do you think it will return in season 3 or in a later season? And on the panel as well, do you think that we have seen the last of this kind of nightmarish entity thing?
No, not at all. No. It's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if it was a Bond villain, his first evil scheme got foiled, but that doesn't mean that he's over with. There's a lot more to come, and we'll see a change of tactics. Maybe we'll see another like insidious plot or something.
Someone has a weird ballerina dream out of nowhere.
We've barely scratched the surface, and that's all with the presumption that it's a single entity, not a group or whatever doing all of it. I mean, I guess calling it the entity, I mean, I'd call it the powers that be, whatever it is that's controlling all the events, like the weather, like almost look like a hand chopping the top of the Matthews house. I mean, whatever caused it to split right down the middle as it was collapsing down in. Yeah, we haven't seen the first of it, barely, much less the last of
much
it.
the last, yeah. No, I totally agree. I don't think we have seen the end of this entity by any means. I do think it will return in some way, shape, or form. And yeah, like you said, maybe it'll change its tactics. We saw that it was trying to infect people through the dream world. It seems like it doesn't have a physical form. It doesn't seem like it had any kind of corporeal form to fall back on. And part of me was thinking that maybe that was part of its end game. Maybe it was going to end up using Randall, Julie, or Mari as maybe it was preparing them to be its next vessel, for lack of a better term. Maybe it wanted a physical form that it didn't have prior. Especially when I heard the line that when Sarah turns to Kenny and says, "It got really excited when it touched your arm," almost like the entity got really excited at the prospect of physically interacting with people, as opposed to only being able to harm people in their dreams. I get the sense that maybe this entity wanted a physical form, or maybe it was just trying to escape. We did hear the entity kind of say to Boyd through Sarah that it was laughing at Boyd for freeing it and bringing it back to the town. Maybe that was, but it just brings up more questions. What exactly trapped the entity in the first place? What put it inside Martin? What put Martin inside that dungeon? There's so many questions going on there. But yes, I definitely don't think we have seen the last of this kind of nightmare entity. I do think it will be back at some point. Scarlet Fever says, "I think the entity may still be a part of Boyd in some way. His hand is not healing." Now, yeah, that's right. We did see him look at his hand in that finale episode, and the cut almost looked just as bad as when he first cut his hand when he gave Smiley the worm. So Boyd, along with Jim, is not healing as fast as some of the other characters.
Okay,
maybe there could be is there a part of this kind of worm entity still lingering inside Boyd some way, or maybe even inside Ellis in some way, since Ellis got the transfusion? Who knows? Maybe.
And do you think the healing factor, the more you try to escape, the more you do that, do you think that's what's inhibiting the healing?
I think so. That was my original thought anyway. It seems like Ethan was healing really fast, Elgin was healing really fast, but neither one of them are really actively trying to escape too much. Whereas Jim is actively out there looking for answers, looking for a way to escape, trying to solve whatever this place is. And the same thing with Boyd. Boyd is actively out there trying to escape. And we heard Sarah say that, if you try too hard to look for answers, something will, quote unquote, push back. Yeah, and I do think that's what they're experiencing, why they're not healing as fast.
Yeah, and Kiara Rawls beat me to the punch on this one. We'll see how fast the gunshot wound heals. That'll be the real telling factor. That's the freshest one. And we know Elgin, or not Elgin, Ellis, he's doing parkour a day after getting
a 6-inch freaking knife in his lung. He's up painting.
Yeah. So we will see. We'll see. And again, that wound on the hand could have been super fresh, or it could have been not healing as fast as we thought it could, although it was only a week. But the gunshot wound is going to be that'll answer that question for us.
Yeah, so, that's a very good point.
Good call, Kiara Rawls. And I still got your question set up for Friday or for Saturday's show. I got all everybody. Yeah, that's the thing. If you guys just a quick aside, I call it my homework, but whenever you guys have something that you want freeze framed, or you want a side by side, or whatever, hit me up either on Twitter at Lord_Ravener, or put it in the chat here, and I'll jot it down, and I'll get all these pictures set aside. Now I'm hoping they'll make the show. We'll fit it in before we start the rewatch on Saturday. But Kiara's on my list. Jay Ruiz is on my list. Dante's on my list. And those are just the ones that I remember the
Ravener's
names
got
of.
his homework for Saturday.
Yep,
I
I
love
promise,
it.
man. I
love
promise.
And then that's what's fun. It's so fun to kind of dive into some of these things and dissect them a little bit more. And yeah, sometimes you gotta go in there and find just that right perfect freeze frame that you need. Maybe lighten it up a little bit in Photoshop so you can really see what's going on. And yeah, we try to be as accommodating as possible. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Saturday. Saturday is going to be an absolute blast. For those who don't know, we are doing a season 1 rewatch party every Saturday night live right here on the channel at 10 p.m. Eastern. We will be going live and we will be watching a new episode of season 1 every week. Last week was our first episode. We watched season 1, episode 1, and we are going to be watching season 1, episode 2 this Saturday live on the channel, and then we will be discussing it afterwards, similar to the watch parties that we did for season 2, if any of you joined us for those. So yeah, definitely come and hang out with us Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. We are going to dive into season 1, and this will be season 1, episode 2, and I am really looking forward to this one in particular because this is the episode where Ethan wakes up and he tells Jim about the very weird dream he had about the Lake of Tears and everything else that he saw. So I'm looking forward to dissecting Ethan's dream a little bit more, see if we can pick up on some things that we may have missed, and all of the other stuff that episode 2 throws at us. Episode 2 is one of my favorite episodes of all of them. So yeah, this Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern, we will be continuing the season 1 rewatch party. Definitely come and join us for sure. Mr. Moon Knight says, did we, the audience, get Tom killed because all of the fan theories about Tom being the voice on the phone? I certainly hope not. I really hope that it was not the case, Mr. Moon Knight, because Tom was one of my favorite freaking characters. I loved Tom the bartender. I loved his wit, his charm. He was a very interesting character. And yes, he had all of those crazy fan theories surrounding him at the end of season 1. The most prevalent one being that was Tom the one on the other end of the radio that Jim heard at the end of season 1. And yeah, we see that probably wasn't the case, that seeing that Tom gets killed pretty early on in season 2. I certainly hope we didn't get Tom killed, man. Man, you're making me feel guilty now, Mr. Moon Knight.
Yeah, there were a lot of people
that.
Yeah, and there were a lot of people that really suspected him because he was one not really interested in getting out. He was
he
really
didn't even want to escape. He's like, this thing ain't gonna work. I'll see you all when you're back in the bar drowning your sorrows again. I miss Tom. Tom was good. Man, you got me thinking now, Mr. Moon Knight. I certainly hope we as a fandom didn't get the Tom character killed off the show just so the writers could prove that he wasn't the voice on the other end of the radio. Man, but who knows? Maybe we did. Maybe we did. We got Jesse Rivero. What is up, Jesse? If the writers didn't start hyping that the Jade finding answers in the cave, it would be a nice scene. Yes, exactly. But he didn't get any answers. We got more questions. How come Jade didn't encounter one monster? And there's another good question. Yeah, when Tabitha and Victor were down there during the day, that thing was pretty thick with monsters. They ran into quite a few different monsters. But yeah, when Jade was down there, he didn't see a single monster. Not only did he not see a single monster, but even the little ventriloquist doll that he ran up against was in a totally different spot than the first time that Victor saw it. When Victor first sees that doll, it's sitting on some sort of dresser or something. And this time it's just sitting on a rock. So what exactly is going on down in those caves? Where were the monsters when Jade went down there? It is a pretty vast network of underground caves. I imagine there's probably a lot of mileage of caves down there. Maybe they were just potentially in a different spot of the cave at that time. But yeah, it was a little weird that he didn't come across a single monster, I thought.
Yeah. And for something that thrives on fear, and Jade did get the little jump scare. We got it, and Jade got it when he saw it.
Yeah.
He's like, but it wasn't anything close to like what happened with Victor, where he damn near went into the fetal position and he basically just withdrew completely. Jade was just like, here's a freaking doll again, and then put it aside. So as far as so Jade is one of those people that's almost like immune to fear, or he's so anchored in the real world, and even though he's reconciling all the supernatural and like really mind f things that are happening to him, he is still approaching all of it as a problem to be solved that will have ultimately a solution, I think. You know, even right up to his dialogue with Boyd on the porch. He's like, you know, his problem
we just
wasn't
don't have
that.
enough answers. Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't all the stuff that was going on that was troubling him. It was the fact that he didn't have a place to start as far as solving it.
Yeah.
So he's like almost like a hyper Jim, like a hyper version of Jim, where Jim is approaching it as an engineer, where there should be a solution if you think it through. Jade, and it is. It's like almost like an electrical engineer or a guy who's putting together roller coasters versus a guy who's building a quantum, a quantum computer.
Mm-hmm. They're going to try and get things down in a language that they understand. Try to boil things down in a manner that they'll be able to understand it in a way that they're familiar, because they are kind of men of science and not really men of faith, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
That's an interesting contrast there. The rational versus faith, the brain versus the heart. And
I love how Lost really plays with that, the whole man versus science versus the man of faith thing. And that's really the kind of dichotomy that John Locke and Jack really go throughout the entirety of Lost, where John Locke is very much a man of faith. He takes things on faith and belief. And Jack is, he's the hardcore spinal surgeon. He's very much a man of science. He boils everything down to a fact and false. So I love that kind of dichotomy when shows play with that.
Right. And Father Khatri was hardly a real, almost he was very superficially a religious figure or a spirit, like a guide of any kind. I mean, other than doing like burial duty or whatever, like funeral duty, he was essentially just a psychologist character for
more of a therapy, faith through therapy, not necessarily resounding, heart-filling, soul-inspiring faith.
Yeah. So much stuff to freaking dissect in the show. It is throwing a ton of stuff at us, and I think that's why a lot of us are really loving it so far. I agree, buddy, that the entity sounded horribly evil to Sarah in the ruins, yet just stood there and let Boyd destroy the box. No way. I thought the entity would transform into a terrifying monster. Sus. Yeah. What exactly was the case there? I get the sense that the entity really couldn't do anything to stop Boyd, because I don't think the entity had a physical form. I don't think the entity could have physically stopped Boyd from destroying that music box, even if it wanted to. I think it tried to. I think that was the entity's last-ditch attempt to get Boyd to not destroy the music box when it appeared to Boyd in the form of Abby. It seemed like that was the entity's way of trying to stop Boyd from destroying it, but because it physically couldn't stop him, I just don't see how the entity would have physically been able to stop Boyd in that moment, because it didn't look like it had a physical form of any kind. But although, who knows? Yeah, maybe it was all just part of its plan, and maybe things are going exactly the way the entity wants it to go. Who knows? Maybe all of this was part of his plan. It's definitely a possibility, because it was very evil sounding when Sarah was translating what the entity was kind of saying there, how it was laughing at Boyd for bringing them back to town. It wants them to suffer. And so, maybe, who knows? Maybe it's all part of the plan. And maybe the entities are just laughing at all of us. I think that is the case. That is probably the case as well. Yes, we're just getting laughed at. I have a feeling the writers are probably at the very least laughing at us. Like, that's where these guys think it's going. Nope, let me jot that down. But we will have to see. Let's see. That would mean Ellis has worms too. Yeah, and that was another theory. Like, what exactly was going on with Ellis? We saw the transfusion. So if there is some sort of small trace left still inside Boyd, then it's totally possible that it could be inside Ellis as well. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But like Kara says, we'll have to wait and see how fast the gunshot heals. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. How fast does that gunshot heal? That's a good question. Victor definitely escaped Fromville before. Where do you think all the beaches came from? Says John McGowan. Interesting theory. I mean, Victor definitely knows a ton of stuff that he has not revealed yet. He clearly knows more about this place than any of the other residents in the town. Does that mean he could have escaped at some point and maybe found his way back in. I suppose anything's possible, but I believe the Peaches. In one scene, we do see a food truck in town, and it looks like it's a food supply truck of canned goods. And I get the feeling that maybe the canned peaches probably just came from that. But then again, where did that truck originally come from? So, yeah, who knows? Who knows? Maybe Victor knows even more that he's just not sharing.
Yeah, and that's what I assume, that the truck that Victor has as his like little clubhouse or whatever was a canned goods truck. It wasn't
That's what I
necessarily a
thought.
peach truck. We always call it the peach truck, but
The peach truck,
I
yeah,
imagine
but
that it was
yeah.
everything, and that the
Yeah.
people from Colony House emptied it out, took all the different canned goods that there is, including the peaches, and
Yeah.
then maybe because it did seem like even after Donna told Victor that they were out of peaches, he still had a can or two kept back, but I don't
A
think he
little
had
stash, yeah.
yeah, but I think they had all kinds of canned goods. I mean, one would have to assume that it was more than just peaches individually. So, but even then, man, I mean, you're eating 40 years worth of lima beans, and God knows what else they would have.
Yeah, maybe. Let's see. Oh my God, I died when Sarah said the entity was excited at Touch Kenny. So creepy and freaky. My heart skipped just imagining how evil the entity has to be saying something like that while laughing. I know, right? It was one of those just incredibly creepy scenes, and it definitely kind of makes your skin crawl a little bit, especially just the look on Sarah's face in that moment. She's got that kind of crazed look in her eyes. She's looking over at Kenny. It's like, it got really excited when it touched your arm. Yeah, it was a creepy scene. Definitely a creepy scene, indeed. Man. It took all of 10 episodes of season 2 to resolve the season 1 finale. Has anyone seen something like this in another show? Yeah, in terms of this kind of mystery box style of storytelling, Lost kind of followed a very similar path, where a lot of the mysteries that Lost sets up in season 1 don't really get answered until seasons 2 or even 3 or even 4 in some cases. And I know a lot of the same writers and directors that worked on Lost are now working on From, so you definitely see a ton of parallels there in between the two. But yeah, it's definitely heavy on mystery during these first 2 seasons, where you're not getting a whole lot of answers yet. But I do think those answers will be coming in season 3 and beyond.
Yeah, and in the current environment too, man, it's got to be so daunting and rough, because the way Netflix cancels stuff, the way all these shows are getting canceled, to walk into a room and pitch a show where they're like, look, we're not gonna really answer anything till season 4, and these executives are like, you ain't getting to see. Why are you talking about season 4, man? You don't have season 1 yet. So it's got to be kind of rough, and especially as cutthroat and bloodthirsty as the executives are as far as canceling shows. And I've seen like and I don't follow Hollywood news or anything like that for the most part, but I do incidentally come across through my Twitter feed and other feeds about how aggressively these networks are canceling shows. Now, it might have been a blessing for From that it ended up on such a small network as Epix and then MGM Plus. They might be a lot more hesitant to cancel a show that seems to be getting a good reaction. Now, it's 100% a byproduct of you guys, the chat and the fans that are evangelizing this show far and wide and getting it, the word of mouth. That was something entirely separate that the network could not have planned for. But I think maybe being on such a smaller network where they don't have, I hate to say
it could have helped the not getting the axe as quick, because it is one of their more popular shows.
This one, like on Netflix, this would have been the 38th show. On
Right.
MGM Plus, this is their flagship.
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely seems like it is emerging as their kind of flagship show on MGM. And we have a ask if we can recommend a few more shows while From is down. Absolutely. Well, obviously, the other show, other than From, the other show that I'm looking forward to season 2 the most is, of course, House of the Dragon. I am a huge Song of Ice and Fire fan. That is pretty much what I built my channel on before I kind of pivoted into pop culture as a whole, and now From. But House of the Dragon season 2 will be coming in 2024. If you haven't seen season 1, I would highly recommend checking that out, especially if you were a Game of Thrones fan that didn't like the ending of Game of Thrones, which I really did not myself. I thought season 8 of Game of Thrones was just a hot mess. Season 1 of House of the Dragon really does a lot to kind of erase that bitter taste that I had in my mouth at the ending of Game of Thrones for so long. Like I said, Game of Thrones just was such a big disappointment when season 8 came around. Season 1 of House of the Dragon doesn't make up for it entirely, but it definitely starts on the road to making up for the bad finale that we got on season 1 on season 8 of Game of Thrones. Season 1 of House of the Dragon was near perfect television, I thought, in some cases, and it really honors the source material pretty well for the most part. It deviates in some cases for sure, but that's just natural whenever you're going to get an adaptation as complicated as George's A Song of Ice and Fire or his Fire and Blood work. But if you were a Game of Thrones fan that was disappointed with season 8, I would highly recommend checking out season 1 of House of the Dragon. It definitely starts to erase a little bit of that bitter taste that we've had in our mouths after Game of Thrones failed so hard. Silo is another really good show I would recommend, and that one we got from the chat. So many people in the chat were recommending Silo. I recently started watching it. I'm on episode 4 right now. I am loving Silo. Really great series. Yellow Jackets is another one the chat recommended to us, and I really, really enjoyed Yellow Jackets so much that I already finished both seasons of it. So I would definitely check out those while you're waiting for season 3 of From to come back around. And there's some really good shows on Netflix. There's a Korean zombie show on Netflix called Kingdom. It's the best zombie show, movie, anything. The best thing with zombies in it that I've ever seen in my life. It's the best take on zombies that I've ever seen. A show called without a doubt.
Kingdom is fantastic.
Kingdom
There's 2
is
seasons,
so good.
and then there's a standalone 90-minute that
a prequel movie. Yeah.
Watch the 2 seasons. If you really enjoy it, then watch the prequel movie. If you watch the 2 seasons and you're just kind of like, oh, that was fun, don't watch. The prequel movie is not the same quality as the 2 seasons.
It's not as good as the 2 seasons. No way. Yeah,
wow.
It's nowhere near as good. You can honestly skip the prequel movie entirely, and you really won't be missing much. It doesn't tie too much into the main 2 seasons.
And I tell you,
seasons 1 and 2 are freaking good of Kingdom.
I loved Train to Busan, which is another Korean zombie
That's a great
movie.
One. Korea's,
between Squid Game and that, you're roboting a little bit, Jeremy. But between Squid Game and the stuff that's coming out of Korea, roboting again. But Train to Busan was a great one, and the only thing I cringed about was that I heard it in context of, they're going to make an American remake. So the characters, it's going to suck. The American remake is going to suck so bad because they're not going to leave the characters. They're not going to allow the characters to be the characters. They're going to change them and make them. They're going to update them.
Not everything needs to be remade at the end of the day, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And we are unfortunately living in the age of remakes these days. We're seeing that, a lot of studios are going back to the 80s and 90s and trying to revive a lot of popular stuff from back then, and they're just not doing it justice. If they were doing a lot of these things justice, I'd be really pumped for it. Like Top Gun that recently came out, phenomenal continuation of that story.
Yeah, and they didn't even say who the enemy was in Top Gun. And guess what? They didn't need to.
And you don't even ask, and you don't even wonder the whole time you're watching the movie, just because the writing and the story was just so good. There is a right and a wrong way to kind of do a reboot, so to speak, or a continuation of a property that's been, like Cobra Kai, for instance. Cobra Kai was a perfect way to kind of revive the Karate Kid universe. I was a huge fan of Karate Kid back in the day. I've always loved those movies. The first one is obviously the best, of course, but all 3 of these Karate Kid movies, and yes, I said all 3. I don't even acknowledge the Hilary Swank one at this point or the Jackie Chan one at this point. Those don't even exist in my canon. But the 3 original Karate Kid movies, they're so good. They're so wholesome. They tell such good stories with really good acting. So much stuff that a kind of a high school teenage kid can relate to, which is kind of how I related to it when I first saw them. So much good stuff in those movies that when Cobra Kai came around, I was a little bit nervous. I'm like, okay, how is this going to work? It seems like they're going to be telling it from the point of view of Johnny's perspective. So I was wondering how this was going to play out, but they honor the original Karate Kid spirit so freaking good with Cobra Kai while adding onto it at the same time. And they do it in such a good, respectful way that, like I said, honors what came before and sets up what is going to be coming in the future. Cobra
Right.
Kai is the exact way you would want to see one of these franchises get rebooted. It was perfect.
And they did make,
Well,
you know, they made Johnny out of touch, kind of, but not like a complete butt of a joke of everybody's
He's kind of
joke.
stuck in the
you know?
80s, kind of. He kind of like never evolved from the 80s. He was still stuck in that kind of 80s mindset. I loved that personally.
Yeah, yeah. And we've known people like that, you know, that are just like, they're not necessarily, they don't have to be like aggressively the butt of every joke, but they are just, they're not ever, you know, they're not ever taking down the samurai sword off their wall or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it was just a really good way to honor the Karate Kid franchise.
No, and to answer the question about some series that I can recommend, all my recommendations are always going to be older stuff, just because there's not a whole lot of new stuff I watch. I'm very disappointed in a lot of quote unquote new TV shows and cinema. It seems to be we're just going to repackage the same old thing and throw it out there.
Yeah.
In the last 15 years, though, you've got Wayward Pines, season 1, highly recommend. Harper's Island, which was a network miniseries. I think it's 10 episodes. Highly recommend that. It has the gorgeous. She played. Who did she play? She was on Arrow, but it's Cassidy's daughter. And then Twin Peaks, obviously, seasons 1 and 2 were on network. Season 3 aired about 5 years ago on Showtime. Highly recommend that. That's a little off the cuff. It's a little off. So don't be afraid if you get into it and you're like, I have no idea what's going on. That's perfectly okay. It's a heavy metaphor illusion show. Going way back, though, all the way to the 60s, Patrick McGowan's The Prisoner. It's only got 1 season. It's a really heavy, heady, philosophy-based show that each individual episode stand on its own, but over the course of the run, it deals with a lot of concepts and ideology stuff that it's going to make you think if you watch it and pay attention. So that's one that I'd recommend. If you like From, there's a lot to catch in any of those.
Nice. And yeah, and of course, as Aldous brought up earlier, and as Sechel brings up as well, Twin Peaks is another. If you are enjoying the kind of that mystery style that From has been throwing at us, Twin Peaks is another really good one that you would probably really love diving into. It's a really great show and a lot of mystery as well. Silo, Severance, 2 other really good recommendations that the chat has been throwing at us. There's a lot of good shows out there, but yeah, Yellow Jackets, Kingdom. Silo, those are some of the ones that kind of come to mind for me just off the top of my head. Obviously, if you haven't seen Lost before, I would definitely recommend checking out Lost if you do like From, and because Lost pretty much is From before From. Yeah, a lot of good shows out there to catch up on, and I love all the recommendations that everyone has been giving us as well, but it's been some really, really good recommendations. And yeah, Twin Peaks does kind of become 2 totally different shows. Seasons 1 and seasons 2 of Twin Peaks are completely different than season 3. That is true. It's almost like it does become 2 different shows, but season 1 and season 2 are, it really, really shines, I think, where Twin Peaks is concerned. But yeah, so many good stuff out there to take a look at.
Okay, yeah, man, I love your recommendations too, guys.
Great recommendations.
I know, like we talk like throughout the week. The guys on the panel and stuff, we chat back and forth, but yeah, hearing from you guys in the chat, this is stuff, some of these things I never would have come across. And again, believe me, man, I'm jotting this stuff down. I'm writing these things down. I'm jotting these things down. I keep a little document open all the time. So yeah, if my attention fades for a second, it's most likely because I'm typing something in here, either a note for the future, and it's 100% for you guys. Man, I want to hear what are your concerns? You guys in the chat, how can we make this show a better show for you guys? and that's
Yeah, we're
that's really at
totally
the end of
open
the
to
day.
kind of diving into some other shows and stuff while we wait for season three of From to come back around. And that's one thing that I keep meaning to do. Maybe I'll do it on maybe I'll do it for our next Saturday stream when we go live. Maybe I will put a poll down in the chat, and I will put probably four of the most recommended shows that we have been getting in the chat so far, and you guys can kind of vote on which one you want us to kind of dive into next while we wait for season three of From to come along, because we'll be talking From all the way up until season three comes back around. I mean, there's so much to dive into. Season two left us so much mystery. There's so much stuff to chew on while we wait for season three to come around, and we will continue to do the watch parties as well. But yeah, if you guys want us to start diving into some other shows while we wait for From, we can definitely do that as well. Definitely do that as well. But speaking of other IPs that I am actually really looking forward to that are going to be coming up pretty soon, just before we shuffle off this stream and call it a good night, Dune. I hope there are some Dune fans in the chat, and if you guys have not seen the first Dune movie, I would highly recommend checking it out, because Dune is something that we are going to be covering pretty heavily on the channel when we get a little bit closer to the Dune Part 2 movie coming out. Dune is, I mean, all of us really love Dune here on the panel. We're pretty, I know all this is very familiar with the books. I've read the books, not as often as he has, but I know Snug and I believe Ravener is even familiar with them as well. But we're definitely going to be diving into Dune a lot when the second movie does come back around, especially now that it was recently an announcement that they will be doing Dune Messiah as well, which was a big question for a lot of Dune fans. We were wondering, how much Dune are we actually going to get on screen? How much are they actually going to adapt? They have recently come out and said they will be adapting Dune Messiah as well. So I am so freaking pumped. I am so excited for the future of the Dune universe. And it could not be in better hands with the director Charlie Villeneuve. He just absolutely killed it in that first movie. I love his cinematic way of storytelling. Just about all of his movies, if you look at them, they have some of the most beautiful cinematography that I've ever seen in my life, and some of the best music I've ever seen in my life. Dune Part 1 delivers in every single category. It's got a great cast, a great story, great cinematography, great music. Everything about Dune Part 1 was so fun from start to finish, and they have only just begun to cover the source material. The Dune 1, the first movie of Dune, only covers about not even half of the first book of Dune. There is still so much source material for them to cover, so I imagine we're going to be getting quite a few amount of Dune movies in the future. So we
Oh
will
wow.
definitely be diving into Dune a ton on the channel. So if you haven't seen Dune Part 1, I highly recommend getting out there and checking out Dune Part 1. It is such a phenomenal film, and if you like the film, maybe even dive into the books as well, because we'll probably be doing some book discussions at some point as well, because the Dune books are so good. They're so well written. Definitely get out there and check out Dune if you haven't already, because I know we're really looking forward to it as well. And it looks like there are some Dune fans in the chat already, so that is awesome.
Okay, yeah. See,
Fantastic.
I was assuming that this was good. I was almost taking this next movie as movie 2 of 2. Like it was.
That's what a lot of us thought. A lot of us, because they didn't give any indication that they were going to be doing anything past this second Dune movie. They didn't confirm a third or anything like that, but they just recently announced, like 2 days ago, that they will be adapting Dune Messiah. So yeah, we got a lot of
Wow,
Dune
so
to
it's
look
going to
forward
be
to.
a whole franchise without
It's
end.
going to be a whole franchise. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and we haven't seen. I mean, you've got 1984's David Lynch's Dune, which covered the entire first book.
Yep.
Haphazardly though it was done, it's
A
still a
lot of
lot of
stuff that
fun,
he threw in
a lot
on
of
his
great
own too.
movie.
Yeah.
And he threw some stuff in, but he was really hampered on the editing side of things. De Laurentiis Productions really just hacked that movie and destroyed
Mm-hmm.
what he wanted to do. But he built a lot of it on the original 1970s when Jodorowsky was going to do his film.
Oh my
And
God.
then
Yeah.
you had a lull and you didn't see anything from 84 until 2000. And then Sci-Fi did a
The
two-parter.
sci-fi series was good,
And
surprisingly.
it was excellent. It was really well done, more adapted closer to the book. And they did, after the success of part 1 and part 2, they did an adaptation of Dune Messiah that was fairly well done. And Dune and Dune Messiah essentially tell the Paul story.
Yes.
That's just Paul's portion of it. After that,
Yeah.
you get into some real heady. Again,
You don't
it's
even want to get
heavy
into Leto
stuff.
the Second. That's when it
Yeah,
gets trippy.
and that Leto the Second's journey starts towards the end of Dune Messiah, and
Messiah,
that
yeah.
opens up an entire other can of worms for the rest of the universe. And there's 3 books following that Herbert was involved with until his death, and then his son picked up the mantle and has been basing it off his notes, similar to how Christopher Tolkien did with his father.
Yeah.
But to have a major studio do an actual film release of the quality of what Villeneuve did with
Insane,
Dune
man.
Part 1 is just going to be fantastic. And Dune Part 1 only covered, like Jeremy said, really it's book. There's 3 books in Dune, or 3 parts to that first novel. It really only covered the first part and a little bit of part 2. You've got a whole bunch of part 2s, and part 3 is going to be Dune 2 that comes out in November 3rd. And this most recent trailer really, really evokes a huge positive response for what they're going to be doing, because you've got a couple of time jumps. The entire first novel only covers about 4.5 to 5 years. But there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of galactic politics and things that are occurring, and you've got to do a lot of exposition, and that's mostly handled in books 1 and 2. And then 3 is just a all hell-bent action run. And from what Villeneuve has said, book 3 is going to be really heavy on the action. And having Christopher Walken, as you show right there, as Emperor Shaddam IV is such a
good get. Oh my god, like such a good get having Walken there as playing the Emperor. You're right, man. I can't freaking wait, man. You're absolutely right. This is, and like I said, there's something about Dune. There's something in Dune for everyone. It's predominantly a sci-fi story, but there's something in there for everyone. I saw someone asking in the chat what exactly Dune is about. Suzanne, what exactly is Dune about? It's basically about the power. I mean, it's kind of got some aspects of Game of Thrones to it and Star Wars to it in space almost. It's basically about there's this family, the Atreides. Paul and his father Atreides, they at the beginning of the story, they get sent to this planet called Arrakis. That is to be their new fiefdom, pretty much. They're going to be in charge of this new planet. But really, in all actuality, it was one big setup by the Emperor and by the Harkonnens to try and wipe Paul and his father's family pretty much off the map. And basically, the entire point of Dune is to really control the spice at the end of the day. Whoever controls the spice really controls everything. But there's so much stuff to dive into Dune. It's kind of hard to explain in one sentence, but it's a lot of power struggles in between a lot of different factions and families. And it's just, there's so much fun stuff to dive into. I would highly recommend checking out that first movie if you haven't seen it. If you're completely new to Dune, you haven't read anything, you haven't seen any of the movies, check out that first movie that Denis Villeneuve just recently put out. And if you like what you see, I would recommend diving into that first book of Dune, and it will definitely kind of explain a lot more to you. But if you liked Game of Thrones and you like Star Wars, you'll probably like Dune.
Oh, absolutely. And I saw some people in the chat mentioned Foundation, which is on Apple
Foundation
TV,
season 2 coming up right
is
now,
coming
right?
up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to disparage the show. I'm a huge fan of Isaac Asimov's books. I highly recommend everybody checks them out. Yeah. Whether you read the books or listen to the audio, I highly recommend them. The series is an adaptation, and I'll leave it at that. But the Dune films were a very faithful adaptation with regards to the tone and the content, and that was one of the things that excited me so much, because anytime you hear Hollywood touching a property that you're passionate about, it's always unnerving. You're worried that they're gonna destroy it, and in this case, Villeneuve really took the ball and ran with it, and is very faithful to what the Herbert estate left. So it's great to see.
Sure. It's going to be fun. It really is going to be fun. And it's great because, it's right around the corner. The Dune Part 2 will be dropping early November, and it looks like it's going to be a very fun time. And it's definitely something that we are looking forward to talking about on the show. So, yeah, definitely, if you guys haven't seen it, I would highly recommend getting out there. Check out Dune Part 1. It was available on HBO Max recently. I don't know if it's still there on HBO Max, but I'm sure it won't be too hard to find Part 1 if you want to find it.
Yeah, somebody was saying it's on Hulu now. So.
Okay, Hulu now. All right, awesome. And yeah, we're really looking forward to part two. It's going to be a freaking blast. And by all intents and purposes, it looks like they are following the source material pretty accurately. And Dennis Villeneuve, he definitely seems like he is a legit fan of Dune. That this isn't just a job to him. He seems like a really big Dune fan. So I definitely think this franchise is in very good hands. And of course, like I said earlier, definitely check out House of the Dragon if you haven't already. Season 1 of House of the Dragon really goes a long way to kind of erasing that bad taste that Game of Thrones season 8 left in a lot of our mouths. House of the Dragon season 1 was done very, very well, and they set up a lot of interesting things for season 2 of House of the Dragon is going to be freaking insane in terms of the amount of wars that are coming, the deaths, the dragon battles. Season 2 of House of the Dragon is going to be like unlike anything we've ever seen, whether on Game of Thrones or anything. Season 2 of House of the Dragon is going to just be freaking absolutely nuts in terms of the fantasy genre. It's going to do some things that we haven't seen before, and it's going to have some very savage moments. I would definitely not recommend House of the Dragon for anyone who is a little young. It's definitely not someone you want to watch with the kids if you have young kids. It's definitely an adult show. That much I want to make clear. But it's great. It's a really fun time, and season 2 is going to be coming. Probably season 2 of House of the Dragon will probably be coming right around the same time that From season 3 comes out. So we'll have both of those shows to look forward to right around the same time of each other, I would imagine. So that is probably going to be the future of the channel. And of course, definitely always open to some new suggestions that you guys want to recommend that we can talk about in the on these streams. I'm always looking for some new shows to dive into. So if you guys have any of those shows that you want us to kind of maybe cover on the show in the future, definitely leave them in the comment section after the stream ends, and I will definitely take a look. And if you haven't already, definitely check out my recent video I just uploaded this morning on what exactly the entity was planning and whether or not we will see the entity in season 3 or beyond. Definitely check that one out and leave your thoughts and predictions down below in that comment section as well. And I just want to thank everybody again for coming out and joining us every week. You guys have been so freaking cool week in and week out, just joining us for all of these streams. It's been an absolute blast. I really can't thank each and every one of you enough. And I'm looking forward to continuing the From Talk as we go on. Of course, this Saturday we have episode 2 of our season 1 rewatch party that we will be going live right at around 10 p.m. Eastern or so. We will go live, and like we did last week, we'll give everybody 30, 45 minutes to kind of pile in before we start the actual watch party. But definitely come and hang out with us for that. That is going to be going live this Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern. We are going to be watching season 1, episode 2 of From, an episode that I am personally really looking forward to. We're going to get the rundown on Ethan's Lake of Tears dream and everything else that comes with episode 2, and I'm looking forward to dissecting it with all of you down in the chat. So definitely come back and hang out with us this Saturday. I will drop the link for the episode 2 rewatch party right here in the chat. From season 1 rewatch. Here we go. So definitely come back and hang out with us this Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern. We will be going live and we will watch season 1, episode 2, and then we will discuss it amongst ourselves afterwards and see if we could pick up on some things that we may have missed now that we have now that we have a little bit more context now that season 2 is over. But again, biggest thank you goes out to the chat. You guys have been so freaking cool week in and week out, just supporting the channel, supporting the stream, supporting the videos. It's been so overwhelming. I really can't thank each and every one of you enough. I know I say it a lot, but I say it because I really mean it from the bottom of my heart. I can't thank each and every one of you enough. It's been so fun discussing this show, and I look forward to continuing to discuss From and all of the other shows that we are going to be discussing here on the channel. I'm really looking forward to it. But until then, everyone, we will see you this Saturday, 10 p.m. Eastern, for episode 2 of the season 1 rewatch party. And as always, folks, keep those tinfoil hats on.